Well, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, Chiefs fans. This is the Back Talk Bros channel, and I am the K in Back Talk Bros. I am Keys. And in today's episode or today's live stream, we're going to talk about the Chiefs beating the Raiders yesterday. We're going to talk about today, Sunday, NFL action, playoffs, Q&A from the chat, and more. So, make sure you stick with us. Aaron and Gooch will probably drop in as well. And yeah, we'll have a great time. Gonna hit the intro.
Y'all ready for them Chiefs? Y'all ready for them Chiefs?
So again, I want to thank you guys for joining us on this lovely Sunday evening. It was lovely, at least where I was today. And if I'm distracted, it's because got Sunday Night Football on ahead of me, and Seahawks and Rams to the side of me here, and trying not to get too distracted. And you guys are probably all watching one of these games as well. But it's been a busy week in the NFL, an emotional week in the NFL, very, should I say, volatile week in the NFL. And it probably would have been a lot of those things anyway, because it is week 18, last week of the NFL, which means playoff time is right around the corner, and everything is way more intense. Everything is heightened. The outcome of a chunk of these games actually meant something. So, anyway, we're going to get into it. And again, I know Aaron and Gooch will be on here at some point, and they'll give you their thoughts. And in the meantime, I will just start jumping into things. And if you have anything in the chat you want to talk about, you can go ahead and throw that up as well. So, yeah. Chiefs went to Vegas, aka the Death Star, aka Arrowhead West, whatever name you want to call it. Ticked off some Raiders fans, because as Chiefs fans always do, at the end of the national anthem, said home of the Chiefs. This has been going on for years. For some reason, yesterday seemed to be the day that Raiders fans took exception to it. NFL fans out there took exception to what's being called the carousel play, or the ring around the rosy play. Not sure exactly what it is in the NFL this season that there's all this anger. Maybe it's a jealousy directed at the Chiefs getting the 1 seed or the 2 seed, winning the AFC West every year, and getting a first round bye might be angering a lot of folks out there, which is weird to me, because it took many years for NFL fans in general to get exhausted, angry, and as jealous as they are of Chiefs fans for the Patriots. Like, the Patriots, they're the dynasty, right? That's the team you think of when you think of the dynasty. They got a lot more years before they started to get this hate. And maybe it was because those teams early on weren't carried by Brady. They were carried by Belichick and his defense. And when you have the best quarterback in the NFL, I think it makes teams out there, fans out there of other teams, feel anxious, feel hopeless, something. there's some reason out there for all the aggression. You guys can let me know in the live comments, or if you're catching this later, leave a comment and let us know, what is it, why is it that the Patriots were able to make it so many years before getting people this worked up um, about the Chiefs. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. Like, I don't understand how people can get so worked up about whatever you want to call the play, ring around the rosy play, whatever you want to call it. Uh, how you get that worked up over that. One, from a strategic standpoint, it's very smart, because what you're doing is the defense isn't they're not seeing the offense set up. They're not able to say, okay, here's number one McKinnon, he's the running back. Here's my responsibility. Here's my guy. It is all of a sudden they spun and then they went right to their positions. You snap the ball. Nobody on defense has an opportunity to identify their guy. They don't know. They don't even know who they're guarding, playing defense against at this point, because of the design of that. And so, from a strategic standpoint, it's genius. It is a competitive advantage for the offense to go from a circle spinning around to running to your position as soon as you can and snapping the ball. In an age where defense is catching up with offense, I'll take it. I mean, as a football fan, if you're not a shallow-minded, entertain me at all costs, I don't want to learn the game, I don't want to appreciate the nuance or the strategy of the game, okay. If you're that person, if you're that kind of, I don't want to say dullard, but if that's who you are, I would still think you would find it fun and entertaining. On a higher level, you can appreciate and understand the strategy of such a play. So again, I'm finding it hard for people to justify their outrage of that play. There's a very strategic component to it, and I appreciate the hell out of that. And the other thing with that is you got to give the offense kudos to that. I don't know anyone out there who's ever tried to do any kind of choreographed like dance move or anything like that. It's hard. I don't know anyone out there. I have a bunch of kids, so I spin around in circles a lot and I get dizzy a lot. I can't walk after I do it. The ability for them to spin around in circles multiple times and then sprint to their spot, know that orientation. Like, you got to give them kudos to that. Now, on the flip side, if you want to say, how long did they practice this play to get that good? Fine. But that's not a source of all this anger and pettiness from the rest of the NFL out there. So say what you want about the play, but even no matter what kind of football fan you are, if you're a someone who appreciates the strategy, you got to love the play. If you're someone who is just staring at the TV and wants to be entertained, you have to love the play. If you're not a Raiders fan, or if you're a Raiders fan, I get it. But at the same time, you could also look at it as a level of respect, right? Because again, it's a highly strategic play. And if I'm a Raiders fan, that's what I would say. Take it as a sign of respect. It's definitely not a play of disrespect. So that said, that's just one of the things that I saw this week that just kind of got me. Like, how are we on either end of it? I don't understand how there's outrage over that. But it seems to be a high level of outrage towards the Chiefs in any kind of possible way, shape, or form, at least this last week or two, maybe the whole NFL season. I don't know. Got Bill Bond with us. Bill, welcome in. Glad you're with us. Julian, glad you're with us as well. Bill says, bottom line, don't piss Andy off. You know, I think it kind of depends. Like, if there was an NFL coach that you would probably want to piss off, it might be Andy, just because he is such a good natured person. I'm not saying he doesn't have a little pettiness in him. As soon as Gooch jumps on here, he would say that. He would confirm that. Andy's got a little pettiness in him. But, as far as a person, the nicest kind of person out there, um yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, I guess I understand, and people just look for a reason to get angry, right? It's like, if I already hate you, I already hate your team. I'm looking for any reason to dog on you. That's just the way it is, I guess. So, uh, I guess that means the Chiefs have made it, whatever that means. We have managed to do in just a few years what it took the Patriots, what, 10, 15 years to do. So I guess kudos to Andy and Pat and everyone else. So, hey, Tom, welcome in. Glad you're with us. Aaron will be joining us shortly. Gooch will drop in when he's able. Everybody, he's at work, so he's got to sneak away or find a way to join us each time we go live. So we're really appreciative of that. And yeah, Tom says, "How did the Chargers lose to the Broncos?" Tom, I'm glad you brought this up, and I was planning on talking to Aaron and Gooch about this topic when they jumped on, and you framed it. How did the Chargers lose to the Broncos? My question was going to be, after watching this performance, does it ease our mind a little bit about our defense's performance against the Broncos? Um, and I think for me it does, because I don't listen. I think Brandon Staley, as a head coach, as a leader of men, probably not in the top 10 of head coaches, maybe not even the top 15. I think he's probably still a great defensive mind. We haven't necessarily seen that with the Chargers, of course, to be fair to them and to be fair to the Broncos too, right? These two teams have suffered a lot of injuries, and they're not the only ones. I'm not saying they are. The Ravens have had to deal with a lot of injuries. There's a lot of coaches, there's a lot of teams that have had to deal with a lot of injuries. But these two teams have went through a lot. Now, my question is, how much of the offensive struggles the Broncos had until the last few games have been Hackett? How much has been Wilson? How much has been Clint Kubiak calling the plays? Because if I recall correctly, they got worse from when Hackett handed off the play calling duties to Clint Kubiak. And it wasn't until they actually handed over play calling duties to the actual offensive coordinator, I want to say. Offensive coordinator, tight ends coach, um, Alton, something like that. It wasn't until they handed over play calling duties to him that it seemed like this offense has looked way different, whatever it is. And so, part of that might be, as a coach, you got to make a choice whether you believe in your system more than you believe in catering an offense to the players you have, including Russ, which is almost what it seemed more like to me, that with the switch, you had more catering to that. I know one of the things they mentioned, though, was Clint Kubiak is the quarterback's coach as well. And so him not having to do that part of it allowed him to spend a lot more time the last few weeks one-on-one with Russ. And so, how did the Chargers lose to the Broncos? I mean, the reality is why were they even playing any starters? There was nothing to be gained from this game from a Chargers standpoint. unless it was about padding individual statistics for players. And I'm not saying that the Chargers were playing soft, that they were giving things to the Broncos, although it could be a little bit of that. I think we're genuinely seeing the Broncos playing more up to the level they're able to, um, which I think it might be a little scary because that offense is still really injured. And so, whatever the case is, it'll be interesting to see what they do as far as head coach next year because I think after today's game, maybe that team looks a little bit more interesting to some of the bigger name coaches that have been thrown out there than maybe it did a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure what'll happen, but I do think that this Walmart ownership is what I'm going to call it. This Broncos ownership team is going to they're going to be willing to break the bank to bring in a legit head coach. I think they're smart enough to understand you have Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes as one of as the team your team has to get through if it wants to win the division. And then you're looking around, you got a pretty good Raiders offense, outside of the quarterback there. But even more so, you look at Justin Herbert and a lot of the players they have on that team. And I think they understand you're probably not going to take a swing and a miss on a first time head coach, an up and coming offensive or defensive mind. You probably do want someone like a Sean Payton. And so I would think that this is just me speculating, but I'm kind of at the point now where I think the Broncos ownership is going to pay someone a lot of money per year, someone with a pedigree of winning to come in to be their head coach. So I know I just answered about 4 or 5 questions off of that one question, but I think to me is one, we're seeing the fruition of the play caller change. And I think part of it probably is that the Chargers, they didn't have to win this game. No matter what they did, they were locked into the number 5 seed. So I mean, it would be hard for me. I know it's a divisional opponent, but at least the Raiders had a chance to play spoiler, to the Chiefs yesterday and knock them out of the 1 seed. Chargers weren't doing anything to the Broncos. The Broncos couldn't even, do it for the Chargers. If anything, this was kind of a prove the Russ haters wrong game for the Broncos. Whereas, what did the Chargers have outside of maybe, stat padding? So I think those kind of things play a lot on it. But you guys let me know in the chat. What do you think? What were your thoughts watching this game or seeing the score of it? And how are you guys feeling seeing the Broncos do that against the Chargers defense? How does that make you feel now looking back, at how the Broncos did against our defense? So Julian says, I'm thinking more on the lines of the defensive performance going into the playoffs. Yeah. Tom says the Chargers don't scare me much after watching the Broncos highlights. I don't know what's going to happen with Mike Williams. I think it was stupid of Staley, but he does this every year. He does this every year in week 18. And by every year, I mean the 2 years that he's been a coach of the Chargers, he's made a stupid move. And last year, it was taking the time out when the Raiders were content to tie the game and let both the Raiders and Chargers make the playoffs. This year, it was keeping those starters in a meaningless game, or you could even say playing them in a meaningless game. Even more so when you're playing next week, right? Just don't even play don't play your starters today. Let them get their bye week. Go into the game next week healthy, but now they're without Mike Williams. So I'll say this though, Tom. It's always concerning when you have to play a team 3 times. And the 2 times we played the Chargers, it's been what? A field goal game, Aaron? Aaron's joined us. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's right. They've been like 3-point wins.
And you go down with a loss.
Right at the end of it. But as far as are you concerned at all if we had to play the Chargers? Which, let's see, what would the scenario be for us to play the Chargers? It would take Miami to lose to Buffalo, which is very much possible. Baltimore to lose to Cincinnati, which is very much possible. So yeah, I mean, I could see Miami maybe upsetting Buffalo unless you're of the mindset, and I know there's a lot of fans out there who are, and I wouldn't knock you if you are, but unless you're of the mindset that the NFL is going to push the Bills into the Super Bowl, I think there's at least a decent chance that the Dolphins can beat the Bills. It'll be their 3rd time playing them. But for me, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in the same season. And if we met the Chargers in the divisional round, that's absolutely what we would have to do.
Statistics are not on our side at that point.
Yeah. It's hard. It is hard to play. I mean, you can throw out the Bengals did it to us in a year-long stretch, not 3 times in a season, but 3 times in less than a year. So, but yeah, I mean, it's hard. The last game, Williams was out after what, the first drive or 2?
Yep.
So, I mean, it's not like, and last time we played, was Joey Bosa injured?
I believe so.
So, I mean, yeah, I would be more concerned about going up against them than some of the other teams, but I think you can probably make similar arguments for each team, or you can just dismiss every team and say, well, we have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes will be fine. Whatever side you're on, and you'll make a different argument.
Yeah, I'm not like any more worried about them than I ever am. They're not like the greatest team I want to play.
Right. Well, we played 4 out of the 6 other playoff teams so far this season. We haven't played Baltimore or Miami, but we played everybody else. So Chargers twice.
Jacksonville we beat pretty handily, didn't we?
Yeah, it was close early on, but I think that team is a lot better now than they were. So, I mean, obviously they were like 3-7, I think, at that point. And then they had to go what? 5-1, 6-1, 5-2, something like that.
5-2, I think.
After playing us, so yeah. Tom says people laughed when the Broncos played us tough, but looking at them beat the Chargers proves that they're playing better under their new coach. Yeah, I'd agree with that. We were talking about that a little bit before you jumped on here, Aaron. What were your thoughts about that Broncos Chargers game?
What do you mean?
Like, did it influence how you have went back and looked at the Chiefs and Broncos, the Chiefs' defensive performance now?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, division games are always tough, and you never know how it's going to end up. Because there've been plenty of time where the the Raiders were horrible, but they killed everybody in the division. There's just no telling. Turnovers pop the right way. Anything can happen in a division game. But yeah, it definitely makes me feel better as far as how many points we gave them or gave up to them.
Hey, Robert, good to see you with us tonight. You as well. Real KV. Scrolling here real quick, and then I'll get back up here. Glad you guys are all with us, too, on this Sunday night. Robert says Charles Woodson said he was insulted. I think we're going back here to the Chiefs play, whatever we're calling it, Ring Around the Rosie, Carousel. I think Patrick Mahomes said they called it Snow Globe or something like that. I think that was the name of the play, Snow Globe. Charles Woodson said he was insulted, said he was going to change his pick to win the Super Bowl. Good riddance, Charles. So I'm not sure what a play would have to do with you changing your Super Bowl pick. The team is either good or they're not. Aaron, I opened up with my monologue about this play. Did you have any thoughts about the play itself? Any thoughts about people being outraged by that play?
I thought it was funny. I didn't think it was insulting. They do stuff like this every year.
Right.
I don't know why that would be insulting.
Yeah. And one of the things I said, like, if you look at it from a strategic standpoint, it's a very smart thing to do.
You're distracting them.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point is you can't see what players lined up in what position, so the defense doesn't have a chance to react. And one of the things I said, I'm not going to rehash the whole monologue, but one of the things I said was, to me, it's the exact opposite of disrespectful. It's a respectful thing. Like you're saying, we're going to take an extra advantage here because we respect you. But people are going to hate, if they want to. One thing I didn't say when I was talking about this play, but I do think it's appropriate, right? People out there act like the Bills players were the only players in the world impacted what they saw on Monday Night Football. Most every player in the NFL who wasn't on the Bills or Bengals was watching that game. Even coaches. Andy said he doesn't watch Monday Night Football, and he was watching. All of these players, you couldn't help but be impacted as a player because you play every week, and it's kind of in the back of your mind that injuries can happen. It's not in your mind that anything like that can happen. So it's in every player's mind this week. Every player is emotional this week. This was an intense week for players in the whole NFL, all 32 teams. Not saying as much as it was for the Bills or even as much as it was for the Bengals who were on the field for that as well. But as a player, and so one of the things to me, because there were a couple plays like this.
I'm glad he's doing better.
Right. Yeah, it's a great story, in its own right. I think everybody's happy. Even those who hate the Bills in general are completely happy for him, and I imagine at some point we'll get into that whole area of conversation, because there's a lot with that, with the Bills and everything. But all I was going to say was, for those who think it's just kind of a fun play, and it is, right? It's named Snow Globe. I think that's what they called it. I think as a head coach, letting your players go out and have a fun play, right? Because first off, it's not like a team goes into a game with their whole playbook. They pick out what plays they're going to run that week or what plays are available for them to run. And it's a much smaller list of plays each week. So when they put this play on their list of plays that they were going to call, like, to me, that was a smart thing to do as a coach, because everybody's been all serious this week. and you throw something in there that's fun, that helps the players find joy again in the game
And
for
help cope.
for how much joy was stolen from them this week, right? You can get stuck in it's just a business, type of thing. Fans do it, players can do it because teams have to do it because it is. But, it was a way for the players to go out and have some fun. So, like, to me, it's just, if you got a problem with it, screw off. Charles Woodson's a former Raider. He can screw off.
I'm good with that.
Bill says Howie Long was mad too. LOL. Don't circle Arrowhead. Don't dance on our logo. Howie Long was a Raider too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Screw Howie Long. We'll make these quick.
They can be mad all they want. Yeah, they went around our stadium. Serves you right. If that's how you want to take it.
Tom says Staley
Hey,
will
Bill.
find a way to lose come playoff time. I'm not worried.
That's probably a good point.
It's a legitimate point. I think we just got to see from our team that now that we're in playoff mode, that they won't find a way to give up the ball. And I know everyone's got their own opinion. Aaron, I can buy the argument that they get bored during the regular season or get bored in games. And I think some of that is, again, your team takes on your head coach's mentality. And Andy just doesn't have that killer mentality, that killer instinct. And we have to accept that. He's not Bill Belichick. He's not John Harbaugh, or a couple other coaches out there who have no problem, who actually seem to enjoy it if they hang 40 on you every week. I wouldn't say necessarily Tony Dungy, but Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. They don't care. They want to score as much as they can, and we know Pat has some of that in him as well. But that's not who Andy is, and he's not going to allow that to happen most of the time, unless, of course, you are the Raiders and you do take victory laps, and then he'll come out for you. But otherwise, I guess that's the way I look at it. So if we're dialed in, I would agree with that. We haven't even necessarily been dialed in the playoffs, though.
We started slow every game in the playoffs when we won the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I'm not saying we're going to the Super Bowl. I think we still have a great shot no matter what, though. I'm not scared of any team out there. In fact, I'd rather play the good teams just to pay them back.
Right.
Obviously, mostly Cincinnati. Buffalo, I don't mind losing to as much.
So Tom says Chiefs' only threat is the Bills and Bengals. The good thing about this is, assuming the Chiefs win their divisional round matchup in a couple weeks, whatever happens, they're only going to face one of these two teams. If Bills and Bengals both win next week, Bills and Bengals will face each other in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Like, it's not possible for us to have to play both teams.
Right.
Because they're the second and the third seed.
Now that we got the first seed.
Right. Right. I'm going to check my math on that. Yeah, because we're the first seed. I mean, looking ahead, we could in 2 weeks in the divisional round, we could play anyone from Jacksonville, Chargers, Ravens, and Dolphins. One of those four teams, whichever is the lowest, uh, however you want to word it, right? Lowest, closest to seventh seed of those teams that win next week is who we would play in the divisional round. So, and again, I think Miami of those four teams might have the best chance. Maybe
I think
Jacksonville.
Baltimore.
What's that?
I think Baltimore has the best chance.
They're playing the Bengals.
Right. And I doubt they showed much today. I didn't actually get to watch much of that game, but I could still see them not showing anything with Harbaugh, and they'll come out ready next week.
I don't know. Even with Lamar, after like the first few games this season, I had Lamar as my fantasy quarterback this year because someone's auto draft took Jalen Hurts, who I had last year. So I took Lamar and then I took Mark Andrews. So I watched more Ravens games this year than I normally would because of that. And I mean, you got to hand it to Harbaugh, once again, having all the injuries, going through all the injuries they did. But this team, I don't think this team is capable of beating the Bengals. I don't see it. I don't even think the Bills are capable of beating the Bengals, especially based off of the 6, 7, 8 minutes we saw Monday night.
Huh.
Like, I don't think the Bengals are a good matchup for the Bills or the Ravens. I think Miami can be simply for the Bills, simply because, and I know that the Bills have stopped them, and that largely depends on Tua's health. Miami and Baltimore, those two teams, it depends on their quarterback's health in those games, um, in my opinion. But even Baltimore, even healthy, I don't think they can come close to stopping the Bengals. I'm not even sure the Bills can stop the Bengals. The Bills beat us by 4, and Chase, Higgins, and Boyd, coupled with Mixon, who's a top 5 running back, is I would argue better weapons than what we have on our offense.
I'd say it's pretty close.
Well, I mean,
But quite possibly. I could definitely give it to you.
people say Travis is the best wide receiver in the NFL, and statistically, you're putting him in that argument with receivers. Statistically, athletically, what Travis is capable of is not the same thing as the top wide receivers in the NFL. Athletically,
Very true.
production wise, yes. Okay, this is part of the thing that irritates me with like Bills fans trying to say, yeah, we have Diggs, but you have Travis Kelce. If you put those two side by side, the things that they can do to a defense are completely different. Travis doesn't have nowhere near Diggs' speed or agility. Like he wins in totally different ways. They're still tight end ways, quasi receiver ways. Not the same way that Diggs, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Justin Jefferson, throw out, 5 or 6, 10 other wide receivers are winning. And to me, that I think that's a big difference is Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, there's a few of these guys. They're special players in the things they can do athletically. As Chiefs fans know, we all remember the stupid, what was it, a slant he caught last year? And very Tyreek like ran away from 9 Chiefs defenders on a freaking slant. There were players deeper than him. And so I just think that the three receivers that the Bengals have, the fact that they actually have a legitimate running game and they'll commit to it. Andy won't commit to the run
That's
game.
the difference, yeah.
Andy won't commit to the run game. The Bengals will commit to the run game. The Bills don't have a run game really outside of Allen. It's coming on a little bit, but if you rank these three teams by their actual run game, running backs, non-quarterbacks running the ball, to me, it's Bengals, Chiefs, Bills. If you look at the whole of their passing game, talking about receiving weapons, I would probably put them in the same order. And that's recognizing the Chiefs don't have a receiver with both the athleticism and pedigree, the history to prove it, of Diggs. You could argue that Tony looks athletically like he could be in that category, but if you put both the athleticism and the longevity of producing behind it, like we don't have a Diggs. And then
Juju is the closest.
What's that?
Juju would have to be the closest.
You think he's that athletic? I would put Tony.
No.
I would put Tony as the most athletic one, I think.
As far as having the history.
Yeah.
Is all I'm going
history. By. Yeah, I could see that. And so I guess that's the way I'm looking at it. When you look at Chase in both his production already and his athleticism, I think it's far and away the best receiver of any of the three teams, actual wide receiver when you consider the athleticism. And then I think you could probably make your case to put Travis. Well, you still have Diggs. So I would probably go Chase, Diggs. And it's really hard because I don't want to sound like I'm disrespecting Travis. Athletically, he's good for a tight end. He's slowing down though. He's 33. When he was young, he was very much up there for a tight end. But he's never been up there, for a receiver, a wide receiver. But he has special skills that the best wide receivers basically don't have. So it's not that I'm knocking him for athleticism. So I think when you take the whole of the weapons in the passing game, I think it's Bengals, Chiefs, Bills. So I think it's the same order. So Bengals, Chiefs, Bills for the receiving weapons, Bengals, Chiefs, Bills for the run game, the non-quarterback run game. I think the difference is when you look at the quarterback head coach combo, because that's where I think Burrow is behind Mahomes and Allen. And even then you can say Burrow's elevated because he has all those weapons. Like anybody out there who wants to make the Mahomes has all these weapons arguments. Hello, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, who I believe last year led the NFL in rushing.
Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, but everybody knows that he's a finesse player and he's soft. Shout out to Justin Reed. No, I'm kidding, but he did get injured in that game, like 3 plays into it, and then he was injured like 2 weeks afterwards. But
right,
so I guess to me, when I look at it, I look at okay, the Bills lost to the Chiefs beat the Chiefs by what, 4 points? They they slowed down our offense, but they didn't completely beat our offense. So I guess you can make the argument is the difference in weapons and the difference between Mahomes enough for the Bills to overcome it? Listen, I know at halftime teams make their adjustments, but what I saw early on in that game, it looked like the Bengals were going to curb stomp the Bills in that game. And to me, it was a game where the on paper matchup, at least in my opinion, matched what happened out on the field. So that's all I'm saying. You guys don't have to agree with me. That's fine. I don't care.
Yes, you do. But hey, Bill,
Like
Julian,
it.
Tom, Robert, we got Matt, Bill, the real KB. Looks like Daryl joined us.
Hey, Daryl.
And Lego.
Bill. Glad to see you guys with us here.
I think I'm caught up now.
Yeah, I gotta make a habit to scroll every once in a while just to see who's with us. Knight says people need to take the Jags seriously. Take the Jags seriously. I don't think he's saying take the Jags tight end seriously, although I think you should, because Ingram has always been oozing with athletic potential, just like our boy Gooch, who's joining us. Gooch,
What up, boys? How y'all doing?
good to
Good,
hear your
except
voice.
my dogs are taking turns drinking.
Is that alcohol? Is that liquor, or you just give them beer?
Just water.
Well, I mean, they're dogs, Gooch, so it's all liquor.
That's pretty good.
If Scott's listening, or Scott, you catch this on replay, there's your dad joke.
Gotta have one an episode, at least.
Gooch wrote it in my contract.
Got it.
Yeah, Gooch, you just joined us. Knight says people need to take the Jags seriously.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we all have a lot of respect for Doug Peterson.
Yep.
Here's an interesting question. If you guys were in charge of the Eagles, now knowing Nick Sirianni's success, although you could question how much of that is due to the weapons that offense has been given. They didn't necessarily, well, the whole team really, they didn't make that jump until they made the trade for A.J. Brown. And then they've done nothing but add to the defensive line and the pass rush as well. So, but would you guys rather, what do you think? If you were an Eagles fan or Eagles front office ownership, would you take back firing Doug Peterson, or did you have to do that? Or would you rather have Nick Sirianni there, or would you rather have kept Doug Peterson? Looking back on it, using some hindsight bias.
I would think they're happy with their decision. I don't think it was a bad thing.
Doug was burnt. He went. I mean, he left Andy, went straight there. Had to put all that time in. Won the Super Bowl. Had to deal with the Carson Wentz thing, and then I think injuries and trying to mitigate that over a 16-game season, knowing that NFL not for long. You're not going to win. They're going to get rid of you anyway. I think he was just burnt out. I think he was tired. He had been coaching straight through, kind of like Andy. Well, not Andy, of course, because Andy's been 31 years, but at least 15 to 20 years nonstop. He probably hit a wall and needed that year or two off, whatever it was, to kind of get his mind right, get the fire back. So I think it was a win-win for both of them. I think Sirianni, I don't know how much of the team's success is Sirianni versus all the Pro Bowlers and athletes they've got. But, I think it was a win-win. because obviously the Eagles are successful right now, but it shows you what kind of coach Peterson is to take a Jaguars team that really kind of wasn't his and made them, playoff contenders. You know what I'm saying? I think it was a win-win. I would have probably, if I was the Eagles front office, which is the question, I wouldn't second guess it. I'd be happy for Peterson, just like they're happy for Andy, but I wouldn't second guess it at all.
I like that.
Yeah.
Maui, aloha.
Yeah, I think no matter. Listen, I think that Urban Meyer made that team look so much worse last year. And I'm not discounting Doug Peterson's, job at all this year. Kind of also wonder though. I know every coach is different, right? Bill Belichick, I think, kind of put coaches, how do I say this? Like, kind of created a standard like that it's really hard for other coaches to fit into because of his unique personality, right? I don't know what your guys' personality is, but I know this about myself from all my years that I spent playing NCAA football and Madden, that there are people out there like myself who enjoy building something up from the ground, right? Resurrecting something from the ashes, building something up from the ground where it didn't exist. And then once you get to that pinnacle, it gets kind of boring and you just want to move on and you want to build something else, right? Like there's builders and there's sustainers. I think maybe Belichick is great at both, but I think that's more the exception. And maybe I'm wrong on this. What do you guys think? Like, I think for some coaches, like the high comes from building something up and you get some more mental fatigue each year trying to sustain that same level of desire for sustaining it, if that makes sense. Whether it's, and I'm not saying it's Peterson, but whether it's a Peterson, Sean McVay, or whoever it may be, it can be more fun to build something up and make it great. Maybe Deion Sanders, than it is to stay there and have that longevity and sustain, have sustained success like Andy Reid, has sustained success, or a Nick Saban, or one of those types of guys.
Well, it's kind of how we got Tony, I think. Stable wanted him gone because he wanted his own guy in there and starting from the bottom. She had a pretty good season still.
I think it's a mindset. I don't know, more so. I kind of agree with builders versus sustainers, except for the fact that if you look at what I would consider probably the top 5 coaches in the NFL, Belichick, Andy Reid, regardless of how a season goes, McVay, Shanahan, probably Vrabel, even though he had a rough season this year. There is a gap in my eyes between Belichick and Reid and then everybody else. And I think the difference is where you have those people who only want to build from the ground up, like you said. Build it up, great, look what I did, on to the next one to see if I can do it again. Versus the coaches who take what has already been given them and just maintain the success. I think what sets apart the real Hall of Fame coaches now, which really is just Reid and Belichick versus everybody else, is they find things in their own coaching to keep the fire burning. Like, I could have done this whole season better as far as calling run plays, but I wasn't sure about the kid. Had I trusted him a little sooner, we might not be doing this. Or Belichick. Belichick's is a black and white guy. Like, he's obviously a great defensive coach, but I don't think there's anybody on the planet ever that knows the NFL rules and regulations front to back like Belichick does. And I think maybe it's one of those things where, damn, I got caught up in this because I didn't know this. And so now let me find everything else out and then see if I can tweak my team to be within the rules and still have a competitive advantage. You know what I'm saying? I think now, like McVay, heralded as a genius, won his Super Bowl, and now he's thinking about not even coming back next year after one rough season. Same with Shanahan. Shanahan's genius, and he is. Don't get me wrong, these guys are great. Like, as far as coaching goes, they are great coaches. But until McVay won last year, what had he done besides be labeled a great coach? You know what I'm saying? It was his memory is impeccable, and he's got photographic memory, my understanding. You know what I'm saying? But I think McVay is a sustainer versus a builder, and he couldn't sustain this year. It wasn't easy. Because, I mean, if you want me to be honest, like, okay, you won a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford, but if you look at what Jared Goff did this year with the Detroit Lions, I have to question why you couldn't coach that young quarterback who went to, who's that bonehead over there coaching?
Where?
I can't think of his name. Detroit.
Dan Campbell.
Look what he did with Jared Goff that you, the quarterback whisperer and genius coach, couldn't do. And Goff is 8 years younger. Like, I don't know. I think we're too quick to – I think you're absolutely right. There's builders and sustainers, but I also think on the flip side where I was going with that is I think we're too quick to herald a coach a genius, and they haven't proven anything. You won a Super Bowl with Jalen Ramsey, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, and a whole list of longtime Pro Bowlers, including Matt Stafford. And now you're talking about walking away as Aaron Donald is going to retire. They're probably going to send Jalen Ramsey somewhere else. And Cooper Kupp's hurt.
Donald's retiring?
Yeah, he's not staying, bro.
Huh.
He signed that contract because they told him they were going to get OBJ back and they were going to make a serious run at the Super Bowl. And these are alpha males. You mean to tell me they think they can finish again on top? Yeah, I'm going to sign that. Especially if you're going to give me $40 million more. Oh, shout out to Defensive Player of the Year, Chris Jones, because if he's not, I'm hot.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that's another player that people want to just gloss on by now that Aaron Donald isn't the top defensive tackle in the NFL. People are wanting to go completely bypass Jones and go to Quinnen Williams and some of these other kids, and not to take away from them, but it's clearly Chris Jones right now. So we're not skipping over him, even if other people might try to. But
the only reason why Jones isn't getting the recognition is because he had the unfortunate timing to play in the league the same time as Aaron Donald. That's the only reason why. Everybody knows he's good. You hear commentators on the game talk about all the time. But he had the unfortunate timing of playing when Aaron Donald was at his peak. You know what I'm saying? It's just like Houston. When Houston was with us at his peak, he didn't get a lot of recognition. Why? J.J. Watt was at his peak. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the timing is terrible. But if you can't see what he's doing, 15 and a half sacks from the defensive tackle position when you're normally double teamed all the time is saying something. Because I don't really think, aside from, I mean, there are a few, but you're generally, Chris Jones, you're taking on one of the league's top centers and or right or left guards every single play. You never hear somebody say, oh, that guard is weak. Your tackles are weak. But you never hear that guard and center combination sucks. Because generally that's the one thing everybody gets right. The interior of that line. Even the second string are really, really good. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just my opinion on it. But he should be Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Even when Austin Ryder's involved?
He's a tackle. Or that's Wiley. Ryder, yeah.
Center.
All right. Yeah. Well, see, the thing is nobody rushed against Austin Ryder because he always looked lost. So they
Because
just
he
lined
never
up
gave himself an assignment.
So he'd hike the ball and stand up and look around, and everybody was already by him.
Yep.
So I do think that along with the Chris Jones kudos, you also have to kind of include not only Joe Cullen, who has pushed Jones, more and more this year, which is weird because Daly seems like, he's a fiery guy himself. And I don't want to get into let's talk about how good of a coach Daly is thing, but I think you do have to give some kudos to Cullen. And on top of that, I think you have to give some kudos on to some of these kids that Cullen is, bringing along. George Karlaftis coming along now, having 6.5 sacks, really turning it on as the season ended, helped Chris Jones get there a little, at least a little bit. We've talked before, just give Chris Jones some help. Some idiot on Twitter tried to fight me a few weeks ago, for this. It's like, imagine if we hadn't been wasting Chris Jones's ability and we had actually given him a legit other guy on the defensive line, and we're starting to see it with Dunlap and George Karlaftis. Dunlap batting down passes, Karlaftis motor batting down passes, and finally starting to get the sacks to go with it, to where all of a sudden defenses are like, oh crap. All of a sudden we just can't count on nobody on the defensive line other than Chris Jones can win a one-on-one, so we can double and triple Chris Jones all we want. BS, you can't do it now.
Is Cullen older?
Yeah, I would say he's in his 50s.
And I think that's the difference. It's hard to be the same age or just a little bit older than the guys you're coaching and who have also been successful, and they think you can teach them something. Again, these are alpha males. You know what I'm saying? And a 35-year-old can't tell a 28-year-old Chris Jones, okay, yeah, I won these rings with these guys, and you're coming from Belichick because now Chris has a Super Bowl. So his talent speaks for itself. And I think Cullen, who has, and I think that has to do with Andy's staff. I think there's a respect level for guys who have been doing it 20, 25 years versus a guy who's been doing it the same amount of time you've been in the league. You know what I'm saying? I think the only way you can pull that off is if you were a player, which is why Sam Madison always got so much respect, because he was great and he played in the league. So people would listen because he had knowledge. But I think when you're coaching the same amount of time that a player's been in the league, it's hard for a player to look at you and be like, what can you tell me? You've been here just as long as me.
Takes
You know what I'm
a
saying?
certain maturity level too.
That's true. And
with these kids, they're young.
And Chris is still young. I mean, he's not, but he is. You know what I mean? And so it's. I think that's obviously not saying anything against Daly. What he pulled in New England is great, with no names for sure.
Right.
So I wouldn't question his coaching at all. I don't think I wouldn't say he's not able. I just think on a team like the Chiefs, when you're led by a veteran coach, an offensive coordinator who played in the league, um, and a highly successful running back, an assistant head coach or quarterbacks coach or whatever, who also played in the league and was a head coach. You know, it's hard for you to look at somebody that's only done it for 7 years and only been this kind of coach to tell you what's up. But if Andy said the same thing, it would be locked in. So I think bringing in Cullen was a good idea, and I think it's helped. And like you said, I mean, Dunlap and Karlaftis, I didn't even like the Karlaftis pick. I hated it. I just say his name right this time, right? I didn't even like that pick. But, I mean, damn, they're right. The kid's got a motor. Like, I've never seen him stop, and he has more moves than Uzi Frank. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, I like it. And it looks nasty now. We can get pressure with 4.
Yeah. I'll just say this. Colin is 55. Daly is 47. So there's 8 years difference between the two of them. And it's not just Karlaftis, right? Dana as an interior pass rusher on this defense, like these guys are coming on. And so
Big time.
and I think it works both ways, right? Part of the reason they're doing so well is because of Jones and everyone's afraid of Jones. But the reason that Jones is able to keep everyone afraid of that, of him, is because they are winning enough to where teams have to, well, can we really afford to triple Jones on this play? Because if we leave GK one-on-one, there's a decent chance he's going to beat us or Dana. And so it kind of plays off of each other. So I think there's like a triumvirate there of Chris Jones's ability, as is at the top, kind of Colin and his experience and his expertise and his ability to coach and all of that. And then we have just enough more talent now to where teams have to respect that talent so they can't bully Chris Jones as much as they used to. And at the same time, Chris Jones is still beating them, whether he's bullied or not, to where they still have to respect him. And to me, I think that's at this point, as Karlaftis and others, as they're finding how to make it work, you're seeing the explosion of success from Chris Jones, which I'll go back there again and say, again, interior pressure. Chris Jones, interior pressure. A lot of Mike Dana's pressure has been interior pressure. He's been winning inside. I'll continue to argue it. Give me the interior pressure. Give me the quick interior wins, because the quarterback can't throw from the pocket at that point. And what is he doing? He's moving outside of the pocket one direction or the other. Guess what? You got a guy who's not a great defensive end, Frank Clark. The quarterback's running right to him, making it easy. All he has to do from that, and this is where it gets harder for our defense for some reason, but all he's got to do at that point is tackle. If it's George Karlaftis, he's probably getting sacked, because Karlaftis with his motor, and I would almost say at this point, I would trust him with his strength and athleticism over Clark. Is that fair?
I don't know. Clark's got more athleticism, I would say, with the weight off.
He's got a better spin move.
I don't know about that.
He's got to
Can't use it every time if it's going to be effective, though.
Frank Clark is like my wife playing Madden, just accidentally hitting the same button to do a spin.
I got 2 things to say. One, I know this is the Chiefs channel. I'm going to say this. I think I need Green Bay to lose tonight, simply because the updated NFC playoff picture came out. The Niners are the 2 seed, and the Cowboys are the 5. And I don't think Green Bay wants to get in and then have to go to San Francisco. Yeah, that's going to be ugly with Debo and them back, and San Francisco is peaking at the right time. I do not, as much as I am not a Packers fan, I do like Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think I want to see him embarrassed 2 years in a row. Daryl, Buffalo championship game, I think, and I'm going to agree with Nick Wright if you haven't seen it. It's one of those things that I agree with. Because of the DeMar Hamlin thing, I think if it's Buffalo, KC, it needs to be played in Cincinnati. If it's Buffalo, Cincinnati, if it's KC, Cincinnati, it needs to be played in Buffalo. And if it's Buffalo, Cincinnati, it needs to be played in KC. I think it needs to be an outdoor game. It needs to be somewhere where if Chiefs are in it, the Chiefs fans can travel to. And I don't think you put it in a dome. These are 3 outside weather teams. I think it needs to be played outdoors. That's my opinion on that.
If we play Cincinnati, it's here, right?
If we play Cincinnati, it's here. But I think because of the
Okay.
way the DeMar Hamlin thing played out, if it had to be a neutral site, then I think it should be played in the stadium, in the team stadium that didn't get it. Like, in all fairness, we don't know who was going to win that game, even though Cincinnati was driving and they were up. I think if you take the game away and you want to play it at a neutral site, the team that's not in it, that's whose stadium the AFC Championship game gets played in. That way you give those fans who missed out on that game a chance to buy tickets to it and be involved.
Here's why I hate that idea. One, if the purpose is for it to be a neutral site, you're not getting that at either of those 2 stadiums. We're talking about 2 fan bases, 2 teams that up until that injury, reportedly from Bills and Bengals fans on Twitter, the whole crowd was saying F the Chiefs. So that's not going to be a neutral site game, playing a game in either of those 2 cities. Secondly, if you want to give a team a chance, a team's fans a chance because they missed out, then play the game in Cleveland so that those freaking fans can get to watch playoff football for once in their lives.
That's not right.
Not a bad idea.
That was my joke, but the first point was actually my real argument. That's not a neutral site. It's not a neutral site at either one of those places, and neither would it be at Arrowhead.
You don't think Chiefs fans would travel?
They would, but it still wouldn't be a neutral site. If Bills and Bengals played at Arrowhead, would it really be a neutral site? If it would, it'd be because we hate both teams almost equally.
Right.
But if it was played in Cincinnati and it was KC and Buffalo, they hate both of them.
I think everybody hates us more, though. Because they would be looking at it as we're always in the AFC Championship game.
Well, we're the New England Patriots again. That's all it really is. You know what I'm saying? Unless it's in Arrowhead, if you want to be completely technical, there's never going to be a neutral site. It's just the Super Bowl is supposed to be a neutral site. When we won it, did it seem neutral? No, because 3/4 of that crowd was Kansas City Chiefs fans. Just like if we go to Vegas, that's basically like a home game. It's
or LA.
Right. But if you're playing it somewhere else or if you played it in Vegas and you didn't allow Chiefs to, you just up for grabs everybody, I think it would be neutral, me personally. Obviously, you'd hate the team that won, but you'd get to see the game. Cleveland's a good idea. Pittsburgh's a good idea. Why not Pittsburgh? And you can have Antonio Brown do the coin toss. What'd you say?
They already said Indy, though, right?
Indy declined.
Oh, really?
They refused to host it, and I do think it would be a dome. It would be a dome team just because that's what the NFL wants, right? If they were going to do an outdoor, if they had their choice, and they did an outdoor AFC Championship game, then what would their argument be for not having an outdoor Super Bowl in the Midwest, and they've shied away from that for years. They tried it with in New York at the Jets and Giants Stadium, and that was like the only time in the last 20 some years or so.
Football was meant to be played in the snow.
I don't
You grow up
disagree.
as a
The NFL
kid.
does though.
When you're a kid, there's nothing like playing in the rain and the snow. It was your toughness. You're out there tackling, trying to lay snot bubble hits. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that was it growing up. Which I actually am going to do a video on the Damar Hamlin thing now that he's better.
Well, I had a theory that I thought they could have gone with was people get 3 days normally for bereavement time. You give them 3 days and then play the game, which obviously that's in the past at this point, but we never spoke about it, so I thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, we really haven't addressed it at all, and I know we all probably have 3 different perspectives on it, but I mean, if we want to talk about it, we can talk about it. We got into it just barely in talking about the snow globe play.
That play was amazing. Also, Daryl, what I can hope is that somebody finds a way to beat the Bills and we play Cincinnati and Arrowhead. I really don't like teams having added motivation, and Buffalo's got a lot of it right now. Now, of course, there's 2 sides to that coin before Keys opens up his mouth. They could have used all that adrenaline and all that extra motivation during this game or the first game, and they could be emotionally spent by the time they got to the Chiefs, which is likely. But also, too, I mean, just always said never underestimate an animal that's trapped in a corner. You don't underestimate what that guy, like, if it was Chiefs, Bills, neutral site, don't underestimate the Bills bringing him out onto a field during that game to try and get an emotional upcharge and, see if we can withstand the onslaught. But that's my thought on it. Anyway, did we want to touch on it? Go ahead. Y'all can touch on it. I got plenty to say, and I got a video to do it in too. So I'll just touch on it a little bit. But you guys,
I'll go ahead and say, hey, Scott and Val, but I said my piece on it.
Let me ask you this, Gooch, because Aaron and I talked about it a little bit. I don't know if you actually got to catch any of the game live or got to see it up to that point, Gooch. But if you got to see it, my question for you is, what was your assessment of that game and which team, if either of them, looked better?
no, Cincinnati. Cincinnati for sure. They looked ready. They looked like they wanted to put their stamp on it. 7-3. First of all, I don't know where the defenses were. Cincinnati just got to stop and got them to kick a field goal. But they were driving right down. But Cincinnati was turning around and doing it again. And the way I saw that game is unless you were going to get to Burrow or throw him off or whatever, I think Cincinnati was going to win. They looked primed to win that game. And I still think it would have forced the Chiefs to play their regulars because Cincinnati wins out from there. Cincinnati's the 1 seed, the Chiefs lose. And I think that's what I think. Just like Chris said, everybody heard. Everybody said the Chiefs were going to finish last in the division. They weren't going to be any good. Yada yada. I think the Bengals heard that they got lucky to get to the Super Bowl, and people play with that. They don't talk about it. They don't make it bulletin board material. They don't do none of that. They just remember. You know what I'm saying? And everybody saw the time, the Bengals can't beat the Bills. Josh Allen is the front runner for MVP all year long until he had his month-long slump. You know what I'm saying? And nobody said anything about Burrow. Yes, Burrow stays mostly in the pocket. I think Cincinnati would have won. And as far as that other thing goes, as unfortunate, and I'm going to get deeper into this, I just want to say this, and you guys aren't going to like me, but my two friends know who I am, so this is not going to come as a surprise to them. It was the exact perfect set of circumstances for that to happen on that field. It was at the exact right time. And I've listened to all these NFLers. We put our lives on the line for this game. As someone who has had relatives and siblings play in that league, none of them have said, I put my life on the line for this game. In fact, they've walked away because it was told to them one more hit could be your life. Or is the difference between you walking out of this hospital and us pushing you out in a wheelchair? You know what I'm saying? And NFL players, yes, injuries are a product of the game. And I know people are attacking me right now, and they will when they see the video. But there are a lot of jobs where people actually put their lives on the line that don't make millions of dollars. Sean Taylor said it best. I play a child's game for a king's ransom. So although we applaud the big hits and all of that, please understand that what happened to DeMar, as tragic as it was, and I'm so glad that he's feeling better, it just happened perfectly. Mixed martial artists put their lives on the line more than a football player does. And there's risk of death and accidents like that in every single sport. Hank Gathers died playing a game. Somebody else died during practice in the NBA. A boxer has been killed from getting too many hits in the head during a boxing match. I mean, it happens. The one guy passed out in soccer and his teammate had to perform CPR right there on the field. Like, it happens. It's terrible, but it happens. So please don't attack the NFL as if they don't care about player safety when they've done a lot for these players. It just so happened that a bad thing happened at the right freaking time.
There's been several football players that have gone into MMA now, though.
Right, but it's more dangerous than football.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying, like, I was on the Twitter, and all I saw was how dangerous football is, and we should appreciate these guys for putting their lives on the line. And I've known NFLers who would never say, I put my life on the line for this game, because their life is important to them. I don't mean to be an asshole, and this is the one person that I would never defend, but Skip Bayless put out a tweet that's gotten like 150 million views, and the one thing everybody's focused on is that one tweet. But the tweet 2 minutes before that is nothing but expressing his hope that DeMar is okay. He's hoping everything is fine with that guy. And yes, he put a troll tweet out, because 99% of you guys praying for DeMar are atheists or don't believe. Now all of a sudden you want prayer and you want to attack some guy who's trying to be what you guys would say. Why are we stopping the game? It's so important, blah, 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 blah. And at the end he said it seems irrelevant. But that's most people's thinking, which is why nobody was upset when Joe Burrow was warming up, because they assumed it was going to start again. Nobody knew what was going on down there. Not until people came on live TV and told them. Everybody wanted that game to continue. So I'm just saying, before you attack someone and you make this a black or white issue, or an athlete versus non-athlete issue, look in the mirror. Clean your own closet first. I'm sorry, that was a tangent. My bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot there that you said, Gooch, and I think we're probably a lot more similar in some of this than we would be fighting on it. Um, Everybody has different experiences and perspectives on things, and I think this is one of those situations where you either have a really strong emotional reaction or you're able to understand what you're feeling and think about things at the same time. You talked about Skip Bayless. To me, as you said, the last sentence of that, it seems to me like you hate somebody, and not you personally, maybe all of us.
I do.
You hate somebody, and you're always looking for the gotcha, right? Like, I don't like Skip Bayless. You said you didn't like Skip Bayless. I'm sure Aaron doesn't like Skip Bayless. He says plenty of stupid things. Did I get outraged over this? Like, there were people who were getting outraged over this instead of donating to DeMar's GoFundMe or sharing DeMar's GoFundMe. There were people that were sharing what Skip said that wouldn't even share DeMar's GoFundMe or donate to it. Take the time to donate to it. It's like people are the snow globe play. People hate the Chiefs. People hate Skip Bayless. I'm right up there as not, personally, I don't know him personally, but as the sports media figure he is, I don't like him. I wasn't taking my time to be outraged at Skip Bayless. But at the same time, I'll say this because I understand we do weird things when we're reminded that we're not in control, right? And players, coaches, fans, everybody was reminded in that moment that they're not in control. There's a reason Gooch signs off every time we do a live and very genuinely from his heart tells you all to tell someone you love them because you never know when you're going to get a chance to. And that is something we've heard that's been echoed by Damar Hamlin time and again, and even more so now. You might just hear it as words out of Gooch's mouth each week. I hear the realness behind it. I hear the life experiences behind it. And I've had a lot of frustration this last week. We've had some Chiefs players, and I don't know if that's who Gooch is talking about, but there's been some Chiefs players on Twitter, talking about we put our life on the line. You don't. You don't put there are, as Gooch said, and he might have read my one tweet, there are legitimately people who put their lives on the line every day. Some of them for other people, some of them in the profession they do so that our lives can go on seamlessly. Some of them not physically, but mentally, right? As we're giving kudos to first responders, the stuff that first responders see all day long, every day, mentally, in a different way, they put their lives on the line. And so, and I'm not gonna call out the Chiefs player who was on Twitter, but I did have a pointed response to someone else talking about it, because the reality is NFL players. Yes, we love the players on our teams for the most part. We're fans of them. We can be critical of them, but they're getting paid millions of dollars and they're not putting their lives on the line. The reality is People only know who DeMar Hamlin is because he plays football. People, and I'm not being insensitive here when I say this, but people die every single day. Nobody outside of their family or their friends know about them, care about them, don't care about their death. People go through tragedy every day, and everybody else's lives go on. And there was a huge amount of people out there expecting everybody's life to stop because of DeMar Hamlin. And I took offense to that.
I think as a 24-year-old kid, me and Liz were in conversation when it happened. And if you don't know Liz, Liz is in the medical field and has been for a long time. And I have a doctor in my family who, when they saw it, sent me an immediate message because they were shook. But I just want to give you guys some perspective on the NFL. We all would agree that the NFL was a much more dangerous game years ago. You could clothesline, you could body slam, you could do all of that, try to take a guy's head off. There's been only one death in the NFL ever, and it was 50 years ago. And it was a guy who died because he had blood clots and nobody knew it. It was the only death that's ever happened on a football field in the years that football has been played. It was just, I don't want to make light of it because what happened to that kid, and he is a kid, 24 years old, what happened to that kid was tragic. But it was an innocuous play that anybody could have made. Now, if you're a football player in the NFL, be shook. You know what I'm saying? If that means you're going to think more about being safer when you tackle people or whatever, do that. But please don't make it seem like all we care about is violence and we want you to hurt somebody and we want them to be hurt, because firefighters die and they average, 50,000 a year? Police officers die every day in the line of duty. There are still cattle ranchers. There are still loggers out there. You know what I'm saying? There's still guys who do really dangerous jobs. The guys that work on the windmills that you see throughout the United States, they only get 80,000 a year, and they're tethered to the top of those things in those windy conditions by one strap, and that's it. Those guys, when you decide you're going to play football, be a cop, be a firefighter, there's an inherent risk that you take. You know what it is. But death for football is not one of them. You don't expect to walk out of there or be carted out of there with your life ended. There's so many other professions that we don't give the respect to. And because it's a football player and it happened on live TV, oh, their sport is dangerous, they put their lives on the line. No. Most injuries that bad have pre-existing conditions. Dale Earnhardt drove into a wall in a sport that he had been doing for 20-something years, and it was just an innocuous wreck, and he passed in it. All major sports are dangerous. But let's not pretend that football is more dangerous than any of the others. Rugby don't have pads. Those guys do it for real. I just think we should be a little more cognizant of how we approach this. I donated to the fund. I wanted them to be better. That's what most people did. But to attack people like Keys, who has generally, Keys is way more thought out and thoughtful than me. So to attack him on Twitter about something like that is asinine. And Skip Bayless is a troll. I literally hate that guy. But I will give him props because the first thing he said that nobody wants to repeat is that he hoped that kid was okay and that something bad had happened. You know what I'm saying? So he's not without a heart. But he also is still a troll. 150 million views, and you tuned in. You tuned in to Undisputed Monday. It was the highest rated show on TV because of what? A tweet in the cesspool that is Twitter? I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I was shook. I prayed for the kid. Like I said, my family who's a doctor immediately called me and was like, "This is what it looks like to me," because it didn't look bad, and so this is what I immediately came up with, and we watched it. We watched it over and over again, and I'm just like, wow, it was so just easy. You know what I'm saying? The chances of you taking a blow at the exact midpoint of your heartbeat. Do you know how astronomical that is to make your whole body reset? Like it
I've heard a
really
doctor refer to it or likened it to getting struck by lightning.
right. I mean that's the chances are astronomical and it just happened. I think what shook people and what really got to people's core, real people, like people who are in the medical industry, those first responders who ran up, is they're thinking the same thing. The chances of this is crazy, but they've seen worse. You know what I'm saying? Which is why they were able to jump in. And once again, I'm glad the kid's okay. I prayed for him, and I'm not super duper religious, but I did pray immediately because he was a kid. He's a kid, you know, and he preaches love, and he wanted to get a toy drive for kids, and I'm gonna quit dwelling on it. It just upset me when I was on Twitter and people were trying to throw the blame at T. Higgins, who already probably blamed himself. You know what I'm saying? And everybody's attacking that. And I want to get back to football. So I'm going to read this comment. I'm thinking Spags needs to switch it up when it goes to playing the Bills. I'm thinking he needs to play more coverage. It takes away corner seams and anything deep. Julian, buddy, all I'm going to say is I just hope Spags doesn't play a lot of zone. Because Josh will eat us up in zone, and we've got a bunch of man corners.
I'm with you on that 100%.
And if we play man, we will beat the Bills because honestly, outside of Stephon Diggs, who do they got? And if you look at the games that we've lost to Buffalo and Cincinnati, we've been burnt on mostly zones. Outside of the game that Jamar Chase decided to put on a Superman cape and burn Charvarius Ward, we're mostly burned in zones because either we don't know how to play it successfully yet, or I think the main thing is we don't have zone corners. We have man corners. Justin Watson, Snead, McDuffie, they're man corners. They come from a man system. That's what I think. I don't think we need to switch it up too much. I think we just need to play more man.
And keep an eye on Dawson Knox. It's typically the middle of the field we give stiff up.
Yeah, but I really think that Gay and Bolton can handle that. At least Gay. Like, he seems to be coming into his own a lot more now. And Bolton is just a tackling machine. I think the game's going slow for him. I think this team is actually getting good at the right time. Now we just need the offense not to hit that stall button that they always hit at certain games. Although I will say, congrats to the Chiefs for covering the 15-point spread. And, I mean, at least they got it big enough. Like, I understood the more conservative plays late in the second half when you're up, 24-3 at half? I understood that a lot more. What scares me is that they try to play conservative coming out with a 3-point lead, and then the offense stalls. And it stalls for 4 or 5 times. But Tommy only punted 4 times, averaged 49 yards a punt, which was amazing. I loved the Pat McAfee strut. I laughed at that. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And it was good to see the holds good on the field goals and extra points. That was good. It was actually a pretty. It's probably the aside from was that Arizona this year when we blew them out.
Yeah.
I think that was the first close to an A game that the Chiefs have played all year. I'd probably give it a B.
Definitely nice to go into the playoffs this way with a win handled.
Yeah.
Making a
But
bad team look the way they
don't
should.
worry, guys. We'll be ranked to finish last in the division next year.
Wouldn't surprise me. Seems to be good for us, so.
So Knight points this out in response to Julian saying it's a good idea, but then it means they got to run the ball. And as we know, their best running back is Allen, and he isn't a slouch, which was on my mind. You need, I would almost say, double spies when you play Josh Allen. And this is, we saw when we played the Bills, we saw when we played the Bengals, we saw it both times we played Russell Wilson. The middle is there for the quarterback to run at will. So whatever the game plan is, it's got to involve having at least one spy. Yeah, in my opinion.
Unless you can get a play like Russell had today where he sacked himself. That was pretty hilarious. I think they gave it to Bosa, though. He got the happy feet.
Hang on. I was looking somewhere else. For a second, I thought I heard you say Russell Wilson sacked himself.
Oh, he did.
Wait.
I had to rewind
Okay.
it and play it for Liz.
Second question. Did the Broncos win?
Yes.
Okay. I don't feel so bad now that they
Right.
played us close.
They scored what, 31?
I think Keys put, which is the most that they've scored against any team. So thank you for that. I think Keys sent me a message that said maybe Denver had put up 17 or 20 in the first half.
17.
The Chargers. And I was kind of like, nice, because the Chargers have a pretty decent defense. So if you're doing it against the Chargers too, I don't feel so bad now because our guys are young and the Chargers guys are veterans. So if you're doing it to them also, but he sacked himself.
Yes.
I mean, at least they scored 31, which means he had a couple touchdowns. So you can't point at the Chiefs' defense as that. Yes, we need to re-sign Juju.
Judy tore him up worse than us too. He didn't get 3 touchdowns, but he got a ton of yards.
Hey, Daryl, I think we go into next year. It's Kadarius, Sky, Justin Watson, Juju, and Marquez. I think unless Hardman takes a sweetheart deal, he won't be here next year.
So you think the MVS will be back, Gooch? Because I know there's a lot of Chiefs fans out there hating on MVS who don't think he'll be back.
Yeah, I think he'll be back. I think something that Andy said and something that a commentator said leads me to believe he'll be back is because he was mostly a one-trick pony in Green Bay, and when he came here, he was basically like that. But he's starting to get more into route running and stuff, and I think they'll, because they can get out of it with like no cap hit, really dead cap hit after next year. I think they'll bring him back and see how he does, and then see if he can get him more of a rapport with Mahomes. I think the reason why Juju was so successful, obviously, is because he plays the same area as Travis. And although he is not as good at finding space as Travis, he's got just as good a hands as Travis, and he plays in that middle section where Mahomes can pick you apart almost as well. And so it's like having two Travises, a Travis and a Travis Light on the field at the same time. So I think they'll let MVS come back to try and run those deeper routes and they'll integrate Sky a lot more. And I think Kadarius will start taking on more of that Tyreek role. Now, I'm not saying he's Tyreek. I'm just saying as far as like his twitchiness and his speed, we can utilize that. And I think given the Chiefs a whole, given the medical staff, not medical staff, what am I talking about? The trainers, an off season to keep Kadarius's hamstrings healthy and putting him on the right diet and all of that, I think we're going to be even scarier next year.
Okay. Yeah, I think they have to work on the catching, but definitely there's been the whole timing issue between the two of them. So,
well, that, and I even said when we got MVS, we must have did it on a huddle. I wasn't sure if BAK was up and running yet, but I even said, like, before we got him, I was like, Marquez can make the tough catches. The easy catches, he has hands of stone. And then somebody wanted to say, well, he didn't drop a pass all year last year when he was in Green Bay. Okay, because he was wide open. I mean, it was all long routes, run under it. But before that, before he had the no catch, if you watch his games, he was dropping deep passes that were landing in his hands. He was dropping crossers and all that. I didn't like it. And he's not being utilized as much here. So I think they'll give him another shot. I think Sky will get, oh, please, Lord, let them unleash Sky in the playoffs. You know how crazy that would be? Sweet Jesus.
I want to see it.
yeah, I said, I think it was in the RGR Discord, someone was talking about it. And it's like, imagine, all right, so imagine McColl's back and he's healthy, and you have Tony and McColl, and you put McKinnon and Sky in the backfield, and you put Travis out there. Those are your 5 weapons, right? You got Sky and McKinnon both in the backfield. You got Tony and McColl as your receivers, and Travis is your tight end. Tell me how much fun you couldn't have with the two back personnel out there of McKinnon and Sky Moore in your backfield, and then having Tony and McColl as your wideouts. Like just the speed.
That'd be crazy. I also want to point out, I just want to ask a question. Did anybody else besides Keys see this coming from Jerick McKinnon? Because I didn't. I was all about Pacheco, but I didn't think McKinnon would be this good this late. I assumed that they would be wearing him out, and Keys was the one that was like, Keys was all about that. I did not see this coming. I just thought he was going to spell Pacheco, but man, has that guy been an addition.
I don't know what I saw coming. All I know is last year they saved him more towards the playoffs, and once you got to the playoffs, there were all kinds of explosive plays from him in the short, 3-game sample size we had compared to even Gore's season, who was the previous like explosive play guy. But I don't know anyone who could have seen this coming from McKinnon in the passing game. Now his running numbers still aren't that great, but in the passing game, I think between Pacheco in the running game and McKinnon in the passing game, I think they're getting more what they were hoping to get completely out of Clyde. Because I think they thought they were getting this kind of performance in both out of Clyde when they drafted them. And I think that's what they're finally getting from someone not named Clyde.
Clyde's gone. Rojo's going to be a beast in the playoffs. That guy's got legs because they basically sat him all year.
He's a short yardage guy, I would say. If we
anybody
have
else get dizzy on that huddle?
The snow glow play.
I was like, what the hell are they doing?
I would have been if I was in on it.
See, this is
Sure.
this is what it was me giving a monologue for about 15 minutes. And I started out talking about this play because it's gotten a lot of hate by people, and I talked about the strategy behind it, right? Because it's not, you're not dissing another team. The strategy behind it's 4D chess. But one of the things I pointed out, not only the choreography to spin properly and then go run to your spot like that, like I said, like I spin my kids around all the time. I'm stumbling afterwards. Their ability to spin, and not just spin, but they broke that spin off at exactly the right place for them to all be running in the right direction to get in their positions. Like, people are completely, even all the angry people out there are dismissing the choreography, the skill involved in that.
Coordination.
Not just the skill. Look, guys, and this goes back to what it's fun. It's football. It's supposed to be fun. Like, they're out there having fun. They're not trying to disrespect the Raiders or anything like that. They're having fun. I want my team or the people that I root for, if they really love the game, to have fun. Reason why a lot of teams aren't successful, or their players always look, even when they win, they look unhappy, because they are. Football's supposed to be fun. If you can't have fun doing that and it becomes a business, I mean, yes, it's a business, but if it's only about the money, stop. It's a game. You know what I'm saying? The Chiefs had fun with it. Pat said himself, he was like, we were just having fun doing it after practice. And Big Red was the one who was like, hey, I like that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they were just goofing.
Right. And we talked about, with all the seriousness of this last week, how, as a coach, to include that in the list of plays that are available for the game, it's a smart decision. All the players in the NFL, we talked about this before you got on, Gooch, and you kind of alluded to it, talking about the Damar Hamlin situation. All the players in the NFL, it's been a very serious week, and having a little fun isn't, it's a good thing for your players to be reminded it is a game, go have fun, kind of the opposite of what the emotional tone's been all week.
People are going to be talking about that spinning huddle all week. I think it's the perfect sidebar to all the great news about Damar. I think it's perfect. He's getting better, no breathing tube, breathing on his own, neurologically intact. That's freaking great. Look at this freaking play by the Chiefs. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, like you said, it's a great way to kind of end what has been a really bad week. You know what I'm saying? Started out grim, and as everything started to get better, then you end with this ring around the rosy, you know what I'm saying, like, play. And it's supposed to be fun.
Now, it just occurred to me, as a conspiracy theorist, if you're a Raiders conspiracy theorist, do you think that Pat and Travis could be just a little bit petty, and what they were really doing wasn't a snow globe, but mocking the Raiders driving around Arrowhead in the bus?
I did think about that.
I didn't think about that. That is some deep thinking.
All tinfoil hat thinking requires deep thinking. You got to have the strings and the bulletin board and get it all out there.
But of course, I'd be the one petty enough to do it around their logo. But not everybody's as evil as me. That's just me.
We're not going to drive our team bus around the Death Star. We'll just run a circle here on the field here and score on this play. Of course, then the phantom holding call. I still haven't seen the hold. Phantom holding call, calling that touchdown back. Only thing stopping it from being the most amazing play of the week.
Here's what you're gonna be like. Should have known. The hold wasn't on Creed. The hold was on Brown. When they showed the replay, I saw it.
I did too.
I still don't think it was a hold, but I guess I could see why maybe they would call that, but I don't know.
It was still a great play. And then the fact that they basically ran the same direction on the very next play and got the touchdown. I mean that's basically how we grew up, right? Run it till you stop it, I guess. You know, gave
Marty ball.
you know.
Knight says it should be an NFC team that hosts the AFC Championship game if it needs to be played on a neutral site. So, what we talking about the Lions? I don't disagree with Gooch that it should be an outdoor game, but the NFL, if they get to take a game away from a home team, their preference is for it to be in a dome stadium. I just know that that's what they want. Yeah, Tom agreed with me, said we shouldn't play in Cincinnati. That's not a neutral site. Knight asks you, Gooch. You might know Gooch because you're always flying. Do you know that the Cincy airport is actually in Kentucky?
No, I actually did not know that. I try to avoid Ohio as much as I can and Kentucky. I don't know if you know this about me. I don't match the same color as my brothers over here. They don't like us in Kentucky. Now, I'm just kidding. For those of you in Kentucky, I'm actually just playing. But
Like
no, I
Jason Dunn? Jason's in Kentucky.
I know. That's why I said I'm just playing. I'm just trying to have fun.
I think the only requirement for being liked in Kentucky is that you like moonshine. But
bourbon in general.
Actually, this one I did know because was it the Bengals? There was something with a flight a few weeks ago that had to get diverted to JFK. I think it was the Bengals flying home, and it was actually on Twitter. And I didn't even know that there was a site out there. There's a site out there. I don't know if you guys knew this. There's a site out there that tracks every team's airplane while it's in the air. Every sports team's airplane is tracked in the air. Like you can go to the website and you can see it. And so someone was quick on Twitter being like, hey, this plane got diverted. And they ended up having like engine problems. But
Crazy.
so, yeah, it's a weird one. Why is there airport in Kentucky? I don't know the why, but I did know that it was. But Knight asked if Gooch knew.
I mean, can you really call it the Cincy Airport? If it's in Kentucky, it's the Kentucky Airport, then, isn't it?
Well, can you call the 49ers the San Francisco 49ers when they play in Santa Clara? Can you call the Bills the Buffalo Bills?
Tomato, potato.
It's kind of the reverse of the Chiefs, right? Half the media thinks the Chiefs play in Kansas, so. That's my favorite thing about being a Chiefs fan because I'm not from Missouri. I'm not from Kansas. I don't really care. And then you always get these fans of other teams who like talk trash about Kansas City. I'm like, I don't live in Kansas City. I've never lived in Kansas City. I'm not from Missouri, so I really don't, oh, you're just a stupid Kansas City. No, bro. I'm not from Kansas City. I'm not even from Missouri, so try something else.
Before we move on, shout out to JJ Watt. for ending his Hall of Fame career today. Um, Obviously, one of the greats. So good on you, brother.
Yeah, I really wanted us to go after him this offseason, this next offseason. He's someone I didn't think he would be like a full-time player on our defense, but somebody that I wanted us to bring in because I thought we needed a real veteran presence, but two, just that mentality that he has. It's contagious. But I'm with you, Gooch. I understand. He's got a little kid at home. He had his own health scare earlier this season, so it would have been nice to see him play with us for a year and hopefully get a ring. But kudos to him and heck of a career there.
And some of the great ones that should win rings don't. But he had an impact, even whether he was playing the Chiefs or not. I'm a fan of just good football in general, or great football players who excel at their craft, and definitely one of the best I've ever seen for a good 5 year span. Um, just too bad it was. He would never say it was wasted. Too bad it was wasted in Houston. Um, but I just wanted to put that out. His last game, Hall of Fame career, a good guy altogether. Um, Organized bike drives in Houston, not bike drives, but where he organized this thing where on the first day of preseason or whatever, um, they rode bikes with kids to the practice facility every year. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you don't see a lot of guys do that are mega stars like that. And so, I mean, not only a good football player, but an even better man. And so, hats off to you, bro.
Yeah. Knight says, and I think I finally understood why Knight was telling us this, Gooch. It's an hour drive from the airport to the Bengals stadium. So I think he's talking about the whole neutral site argument that it would be a logistical nightmare for traveling fans to have from both teams, from the Chiefs and the Bills, to have to go watch a game at the Bengals stadium. I think is what he was getting at, is the travel is not, it's not conducive to what you would want for two traveling fan bases. It would be one thing, since half the crowd or more is going to be local Cincinnati people or people driving because they're fairly local, whereas you don't want 70,000 people flying between Kansas City and Buffalo into Cincinnati. I think is kind of what Knight was getting at here, and talk and bringing it up. I think that's where he was going with it. Knight says it was going to be a 40 burger. I think we're talking about Bengals and Bills Monday night for each team. The way it started, man, I don't know. I don't want to discount the Bills, but the way it looked to me, the Bengals were going to win by 2 or 3 touchdowns or so. That was just my take, what I saw. But yeah. Holly is with us. Holly, sorry, Holly. That was
Hey, Holly.
I dropped the ball on the communication there, Holly. Holly says, for example, police officers, firefighters, the military, not here for our entertainment, not trying to demean the situation, but a lot less glory and money. Yeah, and there's a lot more professions that you can talk about out there. Yeah, again, we don't want to take away from players and say there's no risk. I haven't heard. I don't know if you guys have they came out. I know they were doing tests, but I haven't heard them actually confirm whether it was commotio cordis or not. I think everyone, that's what it seems like.
Yes, they did.
Did they confirm it?
Yes.
Yeah, and back to Gooch said it. This isn't something you see in adult sports. 50% of the cases, I want to say, are things like Little League Baseball. It happens way, way, way more often in youth sports and especially baseball because of the energy, the force impact it takes, right? And between youth having, my understanding is between youth having a thinner chest cavity, like the tissue, the tissues surrounding aren't as strong as an adult. Between that, the size of a baseball is smaller, so you're getting a more concentrated hit. And so these things are what tends to make this happen more than anything. And so I think it was like youth baseball is like the biggest one, and then 20% of deaths from car accidents are from this. And so it goes back to the T. Higgins thing. And I didn't see the angle. I don't know if like a point of his shoulder pad is what made contact. And we haven't really talked about, what the NFL could do from a safety perspective. I would imagine there's going to be considerations on pads on how to make the breastplate bigger and kind of share the impact when there's an impact to the heart area. And so, that's why when we were talking about lightning striking, that's just the possibility of it happening. And I think the odds of it happening on a football field with grown men wearing pads, I think the odds are even greater. We're not talking as medical professionals, but, we know people who are, and we can read and think logically there. So I would be interested to see how the league responds as far as shoulder pads, modifications to that breastplate, to kind of get that energy to where that can't happen, where you can't have a concentrated impact there. But sorry, I got off base here.
Okay. Hey, Denver Gator, glad you were able to come by. Good to see you.
Yep, glad you're in here. If you guys don't know, Denver Gator is a Broncos fan and a Florida Gators fan. And
congrats on the win, Denver Gator.
We appreciate you being a subscriber to the show, even though we're AFC West foes. And yeah, looking better. So I'm sure there's a little bit of optimism there. Denver, if you're still with us, what are your thoughts on who the next head coach is going to be in Denver, and who would you like to see?
I know they're talking to Peyton. I also got a notification that they're interviewing Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
There. I kind of wonder if they're not playing, like if they're not using the two to play each other, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just kind of wondered if because all the reports out there was that Sean Payton had no interest in this job.
Well,
and I don't know.
He wouldn't accept an interview, though.
I was gonna say, like, that's been what's been out there is he wouldn't, he's not interested, wouldn't be interested. And there were reports out there that he's living in LA right now and he loves LA. And, he would, if he was going back to coaching, he'd like to coach one of the LA teams. And both of those spots might be available. And I would think the Rams would be the more enticing one. But, there's that Walmart money in Denver. So I don't know that you could ever say never. And with Russ and that offense looking better now, maybe there is a little bit of willingness there, or
Well, the
Maybe
problem
Sean
is
Payton's
this.
just trying to drum up the money from the team he really wants to go to. I don't know.
Well, the Saints have already told Denver it's going to take a first round pick to get Sean, and Denver doesn't have one this year because they gave it to Seattle. Um, so I don't know what kind of number one pick um, the Saints would take. I don't know if they have a number one pick next year either.
I don't think they do, but New Orleans gave them permission, so obviously they're not they're not concerned with that, or they would have just told them it would be a waste of our time because you don't have anything worth offering us. But who knows? I'm guessing Liz talking about Gooch or you, Aaron, or me?
Gooch.
Oh,
Because
what do you
Gooch said he
mean?
wasn't trying to be an asshole, and so Liz told him he was.
Knight says, beside the fact that Skip was already a known idiot, going on Twitter to prove it, then again the next day, going it again when Shannon was making a point. I mean, again, I don't see it. I didn't read the tweet in, I guess, the extreme heartless position a lot of other people did, simply because the last sentence was there. So to me, the whole point was this is something that people are thinking about, and there were a large number of people thinking about it. This is something people are thinking about, but at the end of the day, it seems inconsequential to think about while a young man's fighting for his life. That's basically what I read from the tweet. And that's read by me having no positive mindset towards Skip Bayless whatsoever. So, I guess, if people are going to interpret it how they want to, the next day, there's nothing there that I haven't seen between those two, in my opinion. They, Skip is always interrupting Shannon, even when there was a really nasty kind of a personal attack that Skip did, I want to say a week or two ago. Gooch, if you're on here and you were watching it, you might remember 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago or something. And, and I know everybody out there has their own opinion. I think some of it actually is, real. Some people out there think all of it is rehearsed. It's all scripted, rehearsed drama. And it was kind of the same thing. And Skip, he can't help but interrupt Shannon. And I think if he's feeling defensive, of course he's going to do that. That's what, you do if you're feeling defensive. And it sounds like they agreed they weren't going to talk about it. So he was probably feeling doubly offensive. But listen, I don't like the guy, and I feel like I'm defending him for some reason. So I'm done talking about it. I'm done talking about it because, as Real KB says, nobody likes Skip except for maybe Cowboys fans and Tom Brady fans.
Sounds about right.
Holly says someone's liking Skip though, since he's making $32 million a year, more than the vast majority of NFL players. Well, there's a reason Tom Brady had a decision to make about whether to retire or not. Right? Think about that. I mean, we've talked about this before when we were talking about the Orlando Brown Jr. thing. Or no, the Tyreek Hill thing, right? I think about your legacy off the field and how much more money you can potentially earn after off the field than you can on the field. Real KB. Yep. Brady fans and Cowboy fans. I did not read your comment. I promise you, I didn't even see that.
I had to throw it up there. Though.
Great minds think alike. Gooch would say bad minds think alike too. Holly says,
Darn tootin'.
Holly says, funny that so many are lashing out against Bayless, but sometimes I wonder if that's the type of attention, if that's the type of attention is strategic. Yeah, I mean, what's the old saying? There's no such thing. You know, there. All press is good press. I mean, people aren't tuning in to hear his logical arguments, right? He knows his bread and butter, and it's not making logical arguments.
Just like the old Howard Stern adage.
Right. Yeah. He's built what, a 20-year career or so being a shock jock. And he makes me laugh, though. He says the most inane things. You know what makes me laugh about Skip Bayless? Whenever I see a picture of him and he's wearing like brand new, clean tennis shoes and a chain. And he's like a 60-some-year-old guy, you know, who's trying to look like a 25-year-old football player walking off the airplane, you know, coming into a game. That's what makes me laugh.
The thing is, gentlemen, is that Skip Bayless in that tweet, even though Keith said he read it and how he read it, think about this. What he said that everybody's lashing out for him about saying, even though the last sentence was there, is the same thing everybody was talking about 2 days later when DeMar was squeezing hands and stuff. When was the game going to be played? You couldn't just cancel it because it wouldn't be fair and competitive advantage. But nobody's talking about that part of this whole situation.
It was never going to be fair, though. We lose out on having it at home, and they lose out having it at home. It's nothing was ever going to be completely fair. Once you decide to not play the game.
Right. Yeah. And to me, that's why my argument over the last 3-4 days has been that the most fair choice to me is for the NFL to have told the Bills, you can either finish the game or you can accept the score of the game when the game was suspended, and left it at the Bills' choice. Like, one of my biggest frustrations is people were acting like the Bills didn't have a choice. Listen, this supersedes football. This is life. This is life right here. We always have a choice. We might not like that choice. We might not like either choice that we have, any of the choices presented to us, but we always have a choice. We can only control what we can control, and we can get angry about the choices that we have available to us. We can accept the choices we have available to us. Whatever choice we make, as far as our attitude in making choices and our perspective of making choices, greatly influences our life, our happiness. Whether we embrace growth in our life, whether we don't think that we can ever succeed or grow or anything. I grew up with a father, and I'm getting a little personal here. I grew up with a father whose life motto was, if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. His life reflected that. And I don't want that for people. Because when he died, he thought that was the best thing for our family. that he was worth more dead than alive. It's not how I feel. It's not how I felt then. The choices we make in life, including the choice of how we either accept our control and that we have a choice, making the best of that choice or not, influence the whole trajectory of our lives. And now that I got way off base from football, that's the whole point is the Bills had a choice. I understand the Bengals are angry because they heard Sean McDermott say that they weren't going to continue the game, period, even if it meant forfeiting the game. And then the moment it causes the rules say that the team with the highest win percentage is the number 1 seed, then we get this blowback. Like, you make a choice, even if it's one you don't like, you live with it. You live with the consequences of that choice. But I still feel like they should have been given the choice again. Right? Because the Bengals understanding was that they were playing the game Tuesday night. From this report from was it Pro Football Talk? Is that Mike Florio was saying? From Bengals players. They were shocked and confused when the Bills left Cincinnati because they were under the understanding they were playing this game Tuesday night. And now the Bengals didn't have a chance to be the 1 seed. And now I'm going on a big tangent, so I'm going to stop here because I'm sure I can go down this tangent about 5 more times tonight. Holly says, or you guys can respond if you want to. I don't want to ramble on and then not give you guys the chance to rebut me or add your own.
I'm good. Bayless just has a punchable face.
He does.
That's my only addition.
We need Aaron's top 10 punchable facelifts for 2023, right, guys?
I'm sure I can come up with that.
Oh man, that's a show all on its own right there.
There you go, Aaron. You want to show ideas right there. We need to send 12 months of the year, so we need 12
I like that one.
faces. Holly says possibly ignorant question, but why is tripping illegal now? Seems much less potentially injurious to some of the hits to the head and otherwise. I would think it would have something to do with like the unexpected contact, kind of like blindside blocks and stuff. I don't know. What do you guys think?
That makes sense, but yeah, I guess rationally it doesn't make all that much sense to take it away otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a lot easier to tackle people.
That's true. Especially for our guys.
Or
I'm pretty sure Jones got away with one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, is it intentional or not? That one might have been. I don't know. All right, Knight says tripping and leg whips illegal because it was causing a rise in leg injuries.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, if you don't get both feet to where they fall and you trip one and they're still trying to stay up on their feet, foot could step awkwardly because they're being tripped, twist the knee if you trip them and somebody hits them in the leg or something like that. Like, I just trip them with one leg, and when they're trying to plant with their other to stay up, they land awkwardly and break the ankles, sprain the ankle. You know, it's too many unknowns.
Yeah.
Fall awkwardly on your shoulder from the trip. Now you've got a separated shoulder. I mean, it's just too many unknowns.
Yeah.
If you were to trip someone, I mean, we've all been tripped and fallen. You know what I'm saying? Just in a game with that speed and that kind of impact, it could be really bad.
Right. Liz, I was not attacked. But yeah. Anyway, Denver Gator, not trying to be controversial with this. Hey, it's okay. That happens with us. Sometimes, probably every time anyway. So more accurate to say football players put their bodies on the line, not necessarily their lives. And yes, Skip and Cowherd, biggest trolls in the business. I
I
assume
completely
Cow.
agree. If it's controversial or not, I don't know. I completely agree, though.
I actually kind of like Cowherd a little bit. I think it's kind of unfair to put the two in the same category, but um, if I was making my list, and Aaron, your list is going to be your list, but if I was making my list, um, I would be fine with Skip on there. I would probably put uh, Kyle Brandt on there. Now that dude has a punchable face and is annoying.
I
I'd
kind
agree.
I kind of like Cowherd too because the one thing I think which makes him different than Skip is Cowherd pretty much sticks to his opinion doesn't change based on the outcome of games. He said the same thing about Mahomes and Josh Allen and Herbert and Burrow, all these people that he loves as football players. He said he's been consistent. It's never been a hot take kind of issue. You know what I'm saying? Like he'll admit that he loves Mahomes, but Mahomes kind of goes off into the weeds at certain times during the year, which he does. How many times did I say footwork last year on a lot of his interceptions? He does. He says that he loves Josh Allen. Josh Allen is great and this, that, and the other, but he runs too much. And the offense seems to be a little too Josh Allen centric, and the Bills are going to shorten his career letting him run like that. I mean, he's been the same. It's just that a lot of people don't like his views, and that's a lot better than just
Right.
straight up hot takes with no reasoning behind it.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think that's the biggest difference is Collins' takes are a take on being logical. Um, he might have some things wrong, whereas Skip it just, like his ramble, it's like emotional and stupid ramblings. But I think also like the show style is different, right? Collins giving logical monologues. And I think the biggest difference for me, at least in addition to those things, is he'll admit when he's wrong. Skip Bayless is never wrong. He's clearly biased. He won't admit he's biased, and he'll never admit that he's wrong about things. He doubles, triples, quadruples down on stupidity. And to me, they're I don't want to say they're polar opposites, but they're much more opposites. Like I'm fine. I like Shannon. I don't watch Cowherd, but I would watch him, if I had the time and I cared enough to. Like, I don't watch anybody live because if there's any good content, it usually makes its way on social media in some form and in a smaller chunk where I can consume it. So, probably how people feel listening to me talk on here.
Well, I wouldn't say I like Cowherd, but out of the three of them, yeah, I guess he'd be my favorite. But that's stretching quite a bit.
Is it weird that I also think that other one has a punchable face now all of a sudden?
Who?
Which one?
The one with Good Morning Football.
Kyle Brandt?
Yeah, no, the other one.
Uh,
Nick?
No, not Nick Wright. It's on Good Morning Football. It's Kyle. It's the other guy.
Gosh, the guy that used to be for Mahomes?
Yeah,
I,
I can't think of
I
his
can't
name now.
disagree with you. I can't either now.
Traeger?
But
Peters.
yeah, Shrakes, yeah. Thank you, Keys.
I can't blame you, Gooch.
Yeah. They're yeah, I don't know.
I've actually kind of switched. Initially, it was Kyle and Nate Burleson. I really wanted to punch him in the face a lot of times, but
I like Burleson for the most part.
but then he kind of grew on me. And Schrags, I wouldn't call it hot takes, but he was just too excited about bad takes, and I was just like, man, I need your job. How'd you get paid to do this? You're
Like
stupid.
like Emmanuel Acho,
Yeah, he's another one.
Bart Starr. No,
I
not Bart
liked
Starr,
him.
Bart
I
Scott.
liked him with Marcellus Wiley because Marcellus Wiley was a lot more logical. I didn't agree with a lot of his takes, but when he said stuff, it made sense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To where I was like, okay, I don't agree, but I can respect it. I can see why you want to lean that way. But Acho is like every day, it's like first Josh Allen is the MVP and he's the best quarterback in the league by leaps and bounds over Mahomes. And all of a sudden it's Mahomes is the MVP, no doubt. Been the best quarterback all year.
I mean, to be fair, I think everybody, at least fans, there was a level of concern of what would the Chiefs' offense look like without Tyreek Hill. So I can understand a little bit of it from a logical perspective on paper. But yeah. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, while that's annoying, it's still better than Skip Bayless, because if Skip said that at the beginning of the season, he's still saying it at the end of the season, where at least these guys can realize where they were wrong, right? Logic, they could make some logical, yeah, they might have to make some leaps, but they were based on some logical premises. But at least they admit, at the end of the season, they're not quadrupling down on Mahomes isn't the MVP just because they said at the beginning of the season, which is what you get with Skip Bayless. He's not going to argue anything other than Dak and Brady as the best quarterbacks no matter what happens. Brady could throw 20 interceptions in a game, and he's still going to say Brady is better today than Mahomes is. I don't think you can take someone like that seriously.
Daryl, I'm sorry, but no, it's still too cold out there for me. As much as I'd like to go fishing, I do not like the cold.
Holly asks, didn't T. Higgins get injured tonight? I think he ended up coming back into the game, but I think this past week had to have taken a toll on him as well. I don't know. I didn't get to watch that game, even if I'd wanted to. Did you guys know if he got hurt at all?
I didn't hear. I just heard that they won.
I didn't get to watch that game.
Yeah, I didn't see it, so I don't think we can answer it. But I do think it took a toll on him. Whether it was whose comments was it out there that threw blame on him, and I think naturally, as a person, unless you're like a narcissist, you're going to unfairly put some blame on yourself. So I think that's probably fair. I think the week has taken some, a toll on him. And this is one of the things that's kind of frustrating because people wanted everybody's life to be on pause until, DeMar woke up and he was better and healthy, all of this. And it's unfair, but it's also unfair for people to, again, every NFL player saw that, and there was some tragedy there. And there's still some lingering there's still some lingering stuff in each player. And especially for Higgins. It's not that he should blame himself. It's just it's hard as a person to not put some of that blame on yourself or all the blame on yourself. So I think that's a good point because people are moving on with their lives now. You know, as Demar's health progresses, people are moving on with their lives and they're forgetting the other people who can't move on with their lives or, you know, are struggling in other areas still related to this. So, including people, including fans who are watching who watched loved ones die that way, and you know, and had PTSD episodes from it. Yeah, it was Bart Scott. Yeah, and then he came out and tried
I
to
hate
defend
that guy.
himself. He tried to defend himself and attack somebody else on Twitter who shared it and was like, in two other segments, I said it wasn't his fault. It's like, you already said it was his fault, though. Knight says the backspin punch was great.
Yeah, it was.
Daryl says he's a Miami fan this weekend. I think that's next weekend, right? Because they'll be playing the Bills. Yeah. And I think Miami answered the question of whether they can, you know, whether they're mentally strong enough to play in cold weather. They had a heck of a game. What was it, a couple of weeks ago in Buffalo?
You ready for round 3 of that? Because that's the first game of the wild card, baby.
Now, did Buffalo get both of those first two?
No, Miami won the first one in Miami, and then Buffalo won the one in Buffalo.
I really think this is going to come down to Tua's health, and you're going to find out how good Mike McDaniel is as a head coach in his ability to make adjustments from the last game.
Well, that's going to be the first playoff game: Bills versus Miami, and Cincy versus San Diego.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Los Angeles. Yes. Yeah.
And then
Right.
the Jags have to play. Oh no, I guess the Jags have to play the Chargers. Cincinnati has to play
Baltimore
and Miami and Buffalo.
And Buffalo has to play Miami. Yeah.
Yeah. So depending on how those games go,
it could really not even matter about the neutral site. Both teams could lose on wild card weekend.
I still find it hard to believe that the Bengals would lose to the Ravens, but
I don't think the Bengals. No, I don't think they lose. I'm really interested in the Jags Chargers. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that should be an interesting one for sure. Fun one.
I could see them beating each other up too.
I'm all for that. I want all three of these games to be as physical as possible. Not anybody's life threatened, but beat each other up as much as possible. I'm cool with that. And even though I'm biased in saying that as a football fan, it's still fun to watch. Good physical games. Hey, Daryl, we talked about the snow globe play, I think about 3 times now. And I think we all concluded it was fun. It was great strategy, great coordination, choreography, whatever you want to say, and huge thumbs up all the way around on it. Even more so if there was the hidden meaning of a little spite of the Raiders driving around Arrowhead last year. I don't know. I'm just throwing out the Dan Brown conspiracy theory. So, we forgot about that one. Mahomes catching his own pass. He looked like he wanted to throw it again. Did you guys see that? He caught it, and I thought he was going to try to throw it.
I'm glad he didn't.
I don't think it would have been legal, would it?
No, I don't think so.
Because it was a forward pass, and it got tipped, and he caught it. So, yeah. But he looked like he wanted to at first. Anthony, thank you for joining us. I don't know. Yeah, we've seen you in here before, I think. MVS has 0% chance to be on the roster, in my opinion, easy contract to get out of. Yeah, I know Gooch has his opinion on it. Anthony, you have your opinion. I don't know what Aaron's is, and I don't know if I know either way what they're going to do. I would say this, though. I don't think they would get rid of him until or unless they have someone on the roster they believe that they can replace him, either in the draft or free agency. So I don't think they, at the very least, Juju's getting re-signed. Someone else is being brought in before they cut him, because that's not how Veach typically it's not how Veach operates. MVS is his safety blanket so that he doesn't have to be forced into reaching for a receiver in the draft or overpaying a receiver in free agency. So that would be what I would say. Juju's got to be resigned, number one. Two, whether it's McColl or drafting another receiver or their evaluations, whatever, I think all that would have to happen before cutting MVS would happen. But yeah, logistically it can. Anyway, Aaron, what do you think?
I think it's too much dead money, and for me, in my opinion. But I wouldn't be completely upset if they did it and got rid of him.
Yeah, I'd have to study it more in depth, but I think the structure was definitely so they could get out 1 year, 2 years. 2 years. I think it's definitely a lot more feasible. Of course, with post June 1, you can eliminate some of that anyway. Knight says Alex Kappa got hurt today for the Bengals, and Williams for the Chargers also left the game hurt. Yeah, we haven't even talked about Williams on the show. We talked about it together via text. It's kind of Staley's Week 18 mistake again, right? He had the last year it was calling the timeout in the Raiders game and pissing off the Raiders. So instead of tying the game and both teams going to the playoffs, the Raiders said, screw you after the timeout. And the Chargers got bounced from making the playoffs. But I didn't know the Alex Kappa one because the Bengals lost Lael Collins a week or two ago, right? One of the things that their offensive line had been sneaky good as the season went on because of all the consecutive snaps that their unit had played together. And now you see Lael Collins injured a week or two ago. What was Alex Kappa's injury? I didn't see it. I didn't know about it.
Yeah, I have no idea.
If this is something where he's out for an extended period of time, all of a sudden you have 2/5 of their offensive line hurt, and maybe that causes some issues. I think their offensive line coach is a really good offensive line coach, though, so maybe they can move past it. Knight says use Tony as a decoy and let Sky fly. I'm for all the fun out there. I think Tony is still the most dynamic player. So I don't think he's the player I would use as a decoy. Me personally. I think if I had to rank them, I would prefer MVS as my first decoy, or Watson as my first decoy, MVS as my second decoy, and then I guess you could fight whether you wanted the third one to be Hardman or Sky. I still think at the end of the day, Tony is the most explosive offensive athlete we have out there. But we could all differ on that assessment.
Nope, I'm with you. I think Sky is the least likely decoy because he hasn't done enough to really get the attention, I don't think, yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think the big problem with Sky is so you can't really use him as a decoy, what you said, because he hasn't really shown a whole lot there. You can't use him the same way you can use Juju and say Justin Watson, because those guys can block as well. So you can throw a wide receiver screen or a tight end screen, and you can count on Juju, Justin Watson, some of these guys to actually block. You can't count on that from Sky. I showed a clip on Twitter 2 or 3 weeks ago of them doing just that. And you can question the play, I guess, all the way around, because it was a, if I recall correctly, it was a wide receiver screen to Juju, and Travis and Sky Moore were blocking for him. Sky did a terrible job, but you also wonder, why is Juju the guy that why is he the guy who you're throwing a screen to? Because I love Juju, for his hands and his ability. He's got kind of that Travis spatial awareness, as Gooch has said, but I don't see him as a yak guy. Right? Sky is a yak guy. He can embarrass some people. Travis can embarrass people, and Tony even more so. So I was confused by the play all the way around, but you can't have Sky blocking. You can't really use him for a decoy, as you said. And I think that explains why he hasn't gotten as many snaps. But maybe that'll bump up because they'll, legitimately use him in the playoffs. Anyway, Knight says that Jet's the best all-around back on the team. Yeah, he's still a little too feast or famine on the runs, but I think you'll take it. But I think definitely in the passing game. Although I think Pacheco is, can be just as explosive in the passing game as well. Daryl throws that in there. Tony's faster. Knight says bye-bye, Clyde. Holly says that the huddle was hypnotic. Knight says it's also going to make the AFC teams think, what the hell is Andy going to cook up if we face the Chiefs? Yeah, of course, in this case, it was the players. So what are the players going to cook up? And I kind of got to wonder, because the person who used to find all these plays from college and everywhere for the Chiefs is the guy who's now their wide receiver coach. And we could get into that whole discussion, moving your wide receiver coach to running back coach, moving your quality control passing coordinator, whatever his title was. But he was finding all these plays, and Joe Blameyer to your wide receiver coach. But yeah, I mean, in this case anyway, it was the players who keep coming up with these plays. So I don't know. Maybe we got some future play callers on staff. You think Travis could come back eventually? Aaron, Gooch, be the tight ends coach and move his way up to offensive coordinator?
I don't see why not.
Sweet Jesus, Travis is a...
He's smart enough.
Nothing about him being smart. Travis would be the guy that would probably run on the field and tackle somebody because he'd forget he's not a player anymore.
Holly says she didn't see the holding call. Was it on Humphrey? Tooney, Brown never made it clear. They called it on Humphrey, but the closest, Gooch and Aaron say they definitely saw it with Brown. I saw a little bit with Brown, but I didn't see anything that I thought should be called a hold. But it's going to happen. And who was it? Jeff Schwartz, I think, posted something on Twitter a couple days ago. Maybe it was Mitch. Complaining about how NFL refs miscall offensive holding all the time because their job is to scan all 5 players back and forth. So they see plays at the end of the play. And so when players are falling one direction, they automatically just assume the player is being held. I don't know if that's the case or not, but one of the Schwartz brothers was talking about that. I didn't think it should have been called a hold, but I can be biased just like everybody else. Yeah, Knight says it was still a bit of a ticky-tack call. I thought so, but again. It also points out hard to tell where and if it's going to happen though. I think we're talking about the AFC Championship game now. Maybe Chicago. Real KB says, I think that would be the least. I think that's completely out. What do you guys think? The weather in Chicago, the wind.
I'm not worried about the weather or wind. I wouldn't put my third string on that turf in Chicago.
That too. Yeah, I think Chicago would be out for a bunch of reasons. I'd rather they at least play somewhere like iconic, like Green Bay, if Green Bay gets bounced out of the playoffs. And they are losing to the Packers right now, so. But
now the Lions just scored.
That's I said that wrong. I said Green Bay was losing to the Packers. Green Bay's losing to the Lions. They're not losing to themselves, I don't think. Knight says that's where his immediate family is, so
I just put the game on now. Since we're talking about it. Sorry if that bingo whatever commercial came on. My TV was up too loud.
I don't think anyone can hear over my kids, so probably good there.
It just
Knight says
yelling yes is what the commercial is. So.
And the Lions are out of the playoffs. They can actually keep the Packers out of the playoffs, and the Seahawks would get in.
Now, if the Seahawks had lost and the Lions won, would they have been on? Would they have been in? I was rooting for that.
The Seahawks were going to have to lose and the Lions were going to have to win to get in. But since the Seahawks won, the Lions can keep Green Bay out because if Green Bay wins, they're in. How would you like to get beat by the Lions and not make the playoffs because of it?
You can say all of a sudden all that trash talking Aaron Rodgers has been doing this season. Maybe not the smartest thing, huh? You can go ahead and read some of these, Aaron.
Sorry, Liz was talking to me.
Sweet What's Jesus, up? Are your ears bleeding?
I thought we got through everything.
Did she make you sign another blood contract?
No, on my end, it looks like we're about an hour, 50 minutes behind. Knight talking about J.J. Watt's injuries and all the numbers he put up. Said you never want to go to downtown Cincy where the stadium is on game day. It's a royal mess. Sorry, Holly. We should have sent you the text. That was a failure on my part, though. So Holly says the doc said commotio cordis is a diagnosis of exclusion and that they have to rule out all other causes first owing to its rarity. I mean, I wouldn't think that would be that hard to do, right? Because it's either some pre-existing undiagnosed condition or that for the most part, right? And I would think that since it came on that impact, that it's pretty cut and dry. But yeah, I understand they have to rule out everything. Knight says it happened to Pronger in the NHL back in '98. Took a puck to the chest and it stopped his heart. Yeah, and that's the weird thing.
He got revived really quick, though.
What's that?
But he got revived pretty quick, though.
Yeah, I mean they've been talking about it all week. If something like this were to happen, number one, want it to happen in a hospital. Number two, you want it to happen, at a sporting event where the trained professionals are. And that was one of the other things that kind of ticked me off. Again, I'm not going to say who the Chiefs player was, but ticked me off about that comment because most of us, if something happens to us at work, we don't have trained medical staff there. most of these people who do put their lives on the line every single day and get paid a fraction of even an NFL player's game day salary, they don't have first responders, right there. You're screwed if something happens, you know. But yeah, I mean, pucks, lacrosse, right? Hockey, baseball, lacrosse, where there's a harder ball and it's smaller, so that the force behind the injury can have a bigger spot on impact on the heart. These sports for sure. Because there's someone out there who had a tweet, an anti-football tweet talking about football should be canceled and they wouldn't let their kids play football and it's a dangerous sport. And I'm just like, compared to what? Like, not compared to NASCAR, not compared to Little League baseball, not compared to hockey or lacrosse. It's not more dangerous than any of these sports. Katie Gooch is with us. Gooch family in the house. Aaron, you got your family in the house? My family's in my house, and you guys can hear them. Sorry. It's definitely the cause. The symptoms are too perfect. Textbook. Yeah, I would think so. I'm not a medical professional. Katie, Gooch, you can tell me, is Katie a medical professional? Either way.
She is a doctor.
Dr. Gooch. I will never call you Dr. Gooch.
I wouldn't call me Dr. Gooch either.
Dr. Gooch, though. All right, where are we at? Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to leave here soon. I'm trying to help us get through bubble wrap under the pads. I was actually kind of being
already be a thing.
I was I guess maybe we talking about like little. Like, is that a serious comment? Like some kind of. I mean, I know there will be an equipment maker out there looking into this in the off season. I would think maybe not, because the odds of it happening the first time is astronomical, right? We've had players get hit and get paralyzed, and we've done a lot since then to try to prevent that. The big thing is concussions. As Gooch said, Charles Hughes for the Detroit Lions, 1971, I believe, is the only player who's actually died on the field and I don't want to say this wrong in an insensitive way, stayed dead, wasn't revived. He died there. He was pronounced dead at the hospital, but he died, I want to say, of a heart attack. And he had he had an undiagnosed heart condition that he was actually in the hospital for, or got checked out for beforehand, because his family ended up suing the hospital for releasing him. They didn't catch it. It's unfortunate. So.
And my brother Adam actually had me watch that Pronger video. That's the only reason I know how quick he was revived.
Knight says, did you see the Saints granted Denver permission to talk to Peyton? Yeah, we talked about that a little bit ago, and it might have been the time you made this comment. What I said to Gooch, the fact that the Saints were told Denver that, told me that they at least find some way that Denver can compensate them acceptable. Yeah. Holly says, oh, wow, the Broncos won. I was watching the game until fourth quarter, so wasn't sure how it turned out. Yeah, what happened was the Broncos went up, I don't know how much, at some point, and when they scored and they went up, then Brandon Staley pulled his starters finally. And it was basically like, you guys got the lead. We're at this point now. We've already had the injury, so, we're done. We put up our fight, or maybe he got news from someone higher up and said, hey, listen, idiot, you couldn't lose the 5th seed. You couldn't gain any higher than the 5th seed. So why were you even playing the starters to begin with? Like,
which is what I said at the beginning of the game.
there's no argument whatsoever. There wasn't even a competitive aspect to it on Denver's side of it. So, other than the NFL, probably not wanting to piss them off for not having a competitive game. Yeah, I didn't get it. So Knight wasn't upset with what I said. He did it for one reason only, and that was to start a controversy. Okay, I'm not upset at what Skip Bayless said. He did it for one reason only, and that was to start a controversy. Okay, so you're not upset about what he said. You're upset that you believe he said it to start a controversy,
Or that he speaks at all.
or that he has a punchable face. Yeah, and Knight and Bill are saying that Denver got a number 1 for Chubb in the Chubb trade from the Dolphins. Knight left, so Knight, you watch the rest of this on replay. We appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. Holly said, "Go ahead."
Anybody that's made it to 3 hours.
I barely am.
My kid's almost dead. Holly said, I thought that it was odd that the Bills, except for Stephon Diggs, got on the plane back home ASAP. If they were so concerned, why not stay for another day in Cincy? You know what? Like, that was its own weird thing because people were then trashing the Bills for leaving and abandoning their teammate. And, it's someone, I haven't been in that exact situation, but I've stayed in a hospital waiting room for 2 weeks, as my father was dying of cancer. And there's only so much you can do, right? Especially when someone isn't conscious. Like, the hard thing is you never want someone to wake up and be alone, right? And that's completely understandable. But you have no idea how long it's going to take, one. Two, the way it should work is you can't even get in to see that person. And that was, that ended up being a big deal that the security wasn't going to let Stephon Diggs in, right? It kind of goes back to the whole discussion earlier. If that's any normal Joe, they're not getting into the hospital, even if it's their best friend. It's not happening, So Stephon Diggs abused a privilege of position there to even get in the hospital. First off, it wouldn't happen for anybody else. They wouldn't let a non-famous person in, regardless. If you're at work and your best friend who, is also someone you work with is in the hospital, you can't just tell them, hey, my coworker just got taken in, I want to see him. They're not letting you in, and so it just kind of goes to like the mentality of the players. And I don't want to go too far off on it, but it's really kind of irritating that they're expecting all these extra privileges for being someone who's famous and wanting to take advantage of it to the nth degree, and then trash fans who, by the way, are the customers who are shelling out the money that pays their contracts. Sorry, you guys can throw in there. I make the controversial statement. I'm not trying to be a shock jock. It just, there's things that piss me off. And so Aaron's pretty even keel though. So, he doesn't say much. It's not because he doesn't care. It's not because he doesn't have an opinion, but,
You usually say mine anyway.
He's the silent of the three.
yeah, maybe one of the two of us say what Aaron's going to say. And so, I don't know. Tom says the league is favoring the Bills.
Whoa.
I think everyone pretty much believes that. Says, I'd like to make a t-shirt that says Bills lose for DeMar. I'm not sure I understand that one. You're going to have to explain that one to me, Tom. You just can't take the hits Josh Allen is without it taking its toll eventually. This is an interesting point, Tom, because I pointed out earlier today the Bills had a 2nd and 4, I want to believe, and Josh Allen ran out of bounds 2 yards short of the first down to make it 3rd and 2. And that was very Josh Allen, un-Josh Allen-like to me, right? I don't think I've seen a game yet where 2nd and 4, he's running out of bounds to the sideline instead of trying to fight.
Plowing into somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to prove he's 6'5", 240 pounds or whatever it is and run over people. So I don't know if there's a reason for that. But yeah, definitely something that stood out to me today. Tom says Nate Burleson picked the Broncos to win the AFC. Okay.
I didn't realize that.
Daryl comment. He also said Marcel Smiley was horrible. A Mahomes hater. Reading Daryl's comments here. Bill says, "Do you think we could make Michael Thomas work in Kansas City?"
We probably could have if he didn't re-sign his deal.
Now, according to, I want to say it was,
is he ever not injured though?
From what the contract experts said, he reworked that deal so that the Saints can cut him. That's the whole point, is so that the two parties can move on, is what that was.
I smell a Veach move.
So that's apparently supposed to be what it is, right?
Now think about this. Chris is going into the last year of his contract next year. So they're going to re-sign him, which is going to lower that $25 million cap hit. They're going to they'll probably either rip up and redo Mahomes' contract, or change most of his money to sign-in bonus, because they're going to have a lot of money to begin with. But I think they redo it because the TV money is going to keep going up. Thank you, Amazon.
Right.
And I think they're going to rework those two contracts. And I could see a situation where they try to make one splash move and then re-sign Creed, re-sign Trey, re-sign or find the right tackle if Niang is healthy, which we haven't seen him. I'm hoping Niang is just being stashed for the playoffs. You could see him making kind of a couple of splash moves for maybe a left tackle, sign and trade Brown, get a different left tackle in there. Maybe somebody on the defensive line that's coming up for free agency. I mean, you've got your running back. You can let Clyde go. You could package Clyde and McCall and send them somewhere for somebody. Or, you got Prince Tagabogo. He can play left guard if Tooney decides to hang it up. I could see a big splash move in free agency. On top of that, who doesn't want to play with Mahomes? It's not Green Bay, where nobody wants to play up there, because if Aaron Rodgers was playing somewhere else, playing with Aaron or Mahomes or, God forbid, Brady, it's still a destination point because you can handle the cold. Kadarius Toney, who was with the Giants, hadn't even caught a pass from Mahomes. Who's your favorite quarterback, Patrick Mahomes? I can see Michael Thomas then. If we didn't have to trade anything, maybe we send them Orlando for Michael Thomas. That would work.
He's hurt all the time, though, isn't he?
Who cares? So was Sammy, and we paid him.
Yeah, it'd definitely be a concern, but
Sammy and his hamstring issues that got him cut in Green Bay.
Yeah.
I wondered how he ended up on Baltimore today.
Every team thinks that they're going to get him healthy. If the Chiefs couldn't do it, it ain't happening.
That's what little I saw of that game was seeing Sammy on the bench.
Did you see that the Ravens cut Deshaun?
No.
Already?
They cut Deshaun Jackson. Waived him or whatever.
That's interesting. I wonder if there was some locker room stuff there because they just elevated him a week or two ago. Bill says MVS does part of his job. He takes away at least one defender. Daryl says he's more worried about using the ref to make Cincy Buffalo into the championship. Yeah, I mean, I do think that the refs that they put on games have some kind of influence on them. Yeah. Real KV says my husband stands out on the interstate some nights with just a plastic traffic cone protecting him from cars going 75 miles per hour. Yeah, probably doesn't get paid real great.
That is the very essence of putting your life on the line. One distracted driver.
And they're out there.
That is look, I couldn't do it. I'm saluting him. That is a man's man, because you couldn't ask me to stand out there with a plastic cone with cars going 75 miles an hour. You couldn't ask me.
No. And more power to Daryl for going fishing in the cold. I'll give him that too. He's more of a man than me too.
Yeah, no, that's fishing in the cold, doing what Real KB's husband does. That's man's work right there. I'll go ahead and stick with where I'm at. Thank you.
Yep, same here.
One car fly by me and I'm like, whoo, I'm done.
Goodbye.
All right. Tip of the cap to your husband.
Good seeing you. I'm out of here.
All right. Well, we have made it through, guys. So anything you want to say? Or you guys can keep on talking here, but as you can hear in the background, timer's kind of going off on my end. So
yeah, mine too.
Just say go Chiefs.
2 weeks, baby. Divisional round in Kansas City.
Yep. Well, we want to thank you guys for making it 3 hours and almost 15 minutes into this on this Sunday night. And playoff football starts next week. So enjoy it, because here in another month or so, we'll have to go another 6 months before we get to watch NFL football anyway. So want to thank you guys for watching. Don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon so you can know when we go live, especially if you're Holly and I neglect to tell you. And don't forget to leave us a comment afterwards. Gooch, go ahead and send us off here. And as a reminder for everyone, Gooch says this every single time, pre-Damar Hamlin. Please listen to what he says, because it's not just words and it's not just a sign-off. It is, dare I say it, Gooch, it's a plea.
It really is. We appreciate anybody that watches us, whether religiously or in passing. The guys that stuck it out, we appreciate y'all. We love communicating with y'all every day. Check us out. We're always on. At some point, we're going to add more things. I'm sure I would love for Aaron to do the punchable face thing. That would be amazing. Obviously, we'll be back probably next week after Wild Card, even though the Chiefs aren't playing, or we'll do something in between. In light of the Damar Hamlin, which actually brought people together, please tell somebody you love them. You do not know what tomorrow brings. We appreciate y'all. Have a great one. Happy New Year if I never said it. We'll catch you.
We'll be back.